Well, then the closed session part kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like,
I hadn't even looked at the screen.
we're just waiting on Council Rolls, and apparently he's gonna be a few minutes.
Yeah,
late,
you give
so-
him a couple minutes. He thought he would be here.
Did you know there's order at 8:35. Motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Councilor Murphy, all in favor? Carried. Delegations, Alberta Housing Project. That's a bead, right?
That's us.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for the opportunity today to give you just a quick summary and highlight of the survey and study that we completed in March. So we received our final report in September. And so just an opportunity to share what the highlights from that are saying. So you have the printed infographic in front of you. Our team lead from Links on the project was Becky Disty. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky to give you the synopsis and highlights.
Good morning, everyone. So in this survey, like Dre said, you guys have the infographic in front of you. I don't think that it shows us anything that we weren't expecting. As far as homelessness, out of our individuals who responded, 78 total community members were experiencing housing insecurity, and that puts us right around 57%. In Hanna, the top 3 reasons for housing instability are low wages, housing which needs major repairs. That can include physical things such as no windows, no electricity. And then we also had a lot of responses back that included overcrowded situations where there are too many people for the number of bedrooms. And then the third one, can't afford rent or mortgage payments. In the last 3 housing assessments, that the top 3 reasons or the top 2 reasons stay the same over the past few years. It's that last reason, and this is the first year ever that they have seen that they're all related to finances. In 2020, it was mental health, and then in 2018, it was actually safety. So a lot of intimate partner violence was the third reason. So we're definitely seeing a shift.
Maybe just check just one sec that this is the first time Hanna has
that was my
done
question.
the study. And so the third party that actually did the compiling of the data was the Rural Development Network. So there used to be Alberta Rural Development Network. They've expanded across our country now. So they've dropped Alberta in their name. So this is the third round of communities in Alberta that they've conducted the survey in.
But the first round, so they did conduct it in Hanna?
No.
So but the first round, Hannah's been in. That's what I
Yes.
saw.
Yeah. So when we look at our respondents, we kind of see an inverse relationship. Provincially, we would actually see more female individuals who are housing insecure. In our situation in Hanna, we actually are seeing more males. And then I think something to really note is 74% of housing insecure respondents are over or older. One of the things that the highlights that the Rural Development Network sort of, when they're looking at this 74% being over the age of 40, they actually make this statement of like 40-year-olds experiencing housing insecurity are considered seniors as their physiological and psychological health match or surpass that of a 65-year-old person who is housing secure. This is called functionally geriatric. So it is quite interesting when we're looking from like a community capacity lens, in that we actually statistically, because we have so many individuals over the age of 40 that are housing insecure, that actually like skews our data of seniors. 44% of our individuals gave our community services availability satisfaction score, 44%. And then again, the biggest thing that was highlighted in this needs was transportation. So 16% of our individuals are actually accessing services through hitchhiking. So things like mental health, health services. We know that transportation is an issue, and 86% saying that there's not enough public transportation. And then this trying to sort of like decrease stigma and dispel some myths. 40% of housing insecure individuals are employed. And of that 40%, 73% are working full-time, 9% part-time, and 18% casual. So this idea of individuals who are housing insecure, homeless, are not working is very untrue. So that's something that's really important as the council, I think you guys are aware of.
I have a question. Is there any indication as to why they feel like, why these ones, that's part of the same reasons that you've gathered as well, as far as just the state of their house that they're living in now? None indicated that they're living in their vehicles that I read or anything, or surfing there.
So
accommodation.
there actually is like a definition that they use in here. So definitely like couch surfing would be considered at risk of homelessness.
Yeah. But it sort of seems, kind of bizarre that they're still working and still not able to, and still feel house insecure.
So housing insecurity also considers those facts of like the physical state of the home and the ability to make it to the end of the month with money left over.
Right.
So when individuals are saying they're working full-time and still feeling housing insecure, it's because they're getting to the end of the month and they actually don't have any money left. And so at any time, if they were to lose their employment, then they would be homeless. Yeah.
And I think nationally, it's identified that if a household is contributing more than 30% on the cost of their housing, they're on the line of being, insecure or housing insecure.
Yeah.
So if you're working a minimum wage job,
highlights as far as missing amenities would be 19% of our individuals have insufficient or affordable heating. We definitely know in the community of Hanna, we have a lot of clients who right now are living in houses that do not have any heating and or electricity. We are seeing some potentially very unsafe modes of heating homes, which include like fire pits in homes, multiple space heaters if they do have access to electricity.
Propane heaters.
Propane heaters is a big one. So, and then also safe drinking water, 9% of our individuals are missing that amenity. It doesn't mean that Hanna doesn't have the ability to provide safe drinking water, it's that they can't pay for it.
Okay.
Yes. And then,
So what does, Becky, on your infographic, under the top missing amenities, I understand sufficient and affordable heating, but what does fire protection?
yeah, so fire protection would include things like
Working
smoke detectors,
Oh, okay,
running water in order to put out a fire if that was
sorry, I just
Yeah.
was like, we have,
No, not the
Yeah,
fire department.
not the
Yeah,
fire
the fire
department,
department
so
doesn't
it's,
matter whether you have water or not at your house,
Right.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
okay.
what else was I going to?
And we're seeing quite a few individuals in families that had their utilities disconnected in the spring because they cannot be disconnected during the winter, but they do not have to hook them back up. So that's some of the challenge, and we're working with individuals right now.
Are they individuals who, I know back during COVID, when they made the decision to defer
Some,
utilities, some people got the wrong impression
Of
on
defer.
where defer meant. They thought it was canceled.
yes,
So then you defer your utilities over 6 months. You're looking at a $6,000 bill, and
Yes.
then there's sometimes no coming back from
Yeah.
that, so.
and then now there's interest on that
Yeah.
they owe in addition. Yeah,
Can any of those declare bankruptcy?
still doesn't make the power.
No,
No, but as far as write off the expense, at least they don't have to worry. Yeah.
And then the power company wouldn't turn their
Power
utilities
company
back
Turn
on
it off
afterwards.
until-
There also was, so one of the like myths is, and I just had a conversation with a community member about this, is like, we have so many people on AISH. Right now, we have individuals who they call it third-party billing. So what they can do is if an individual is on AISH or income support, third-party billing guarantees that they have somewhere to live. So their rent is paid right off the top. They don't get that money. You can also do that with power companies. So I had an individual a few months ago that has been on, basically they take like the value of what his power would be, break it up over. So he's been doing that for the last 3 years. They just sent him a statement saying, we're increasing your monthly payment because the costs are going up. They increased his monthly payment by $122 a month to make sure that he is covered for that whole year. He doesn't have $122 a month. I already have him accessing food bank. He is on a fixed income. We're running out of options to help these individuals, and this is what we're seeing. Respondents said they were most likely to access basic needs, health and wellness and support services in Hanna. Interestingly enough, health and wellness, legal, and family and parenting services were most accessed outside of the community by respondents.
I have a question. Do you think some of these, like I think that I did read that some are quite well educated and stuff. Do you think that there is a way to work with other businesses to find them work or to help them with that situation or?
So I would say majority of our individuals who are highly educated are new Canadians.
Mhm.
And so the barriers that they're experiencing for their education to be recognized here is
License.
yeah,
Yeah.
most likely the biggest barrier that they're facing. Our career and employment department, currently we do work with tons of businesses trying to get individuals employment. some of those individuals have very complex needs, concurrent disorders, mental health, substance use, those sort of things. We also have a very highly stigmatized community. Social media has really changed the scope of how people view people in the community. It used to be that if you did something stupid, only the people who read the newspaper were in the know about that or went to the courthouse. Now individuals are stigmatized not only in person, but all over social media as well. And so that right now is one of the biggest barriers I think our individuals in our community are facing, is that the community is not welcoming them, whether they're in a position to be working or actually just need some access to complex services. And then again, worth repeating is time and distance to access services outside of the community were noted as a barrier for some respondents. While 47% of respondents travel by vehicle to get to these services, 16% rely on a family member or friend, and 16% resort to hitchhiking or catching a ride from a stranger. A really great example. 2 weeks ago, I have an individual who I've been trying to get into a rehab center for substance use. This individual wants to go. They want to make a change. They have come in every week to check in because part of the process for recovery center is for them to be checking in weekly. They have come in every week to check in. We got them a bed. I could not get them there. And so then that individual goes back on the waiting list. That was what, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks.
Still haven't got a call. Still this individual is checking in. They want to go, but we just.
Where is there?
This individual had a bed in Red Deer Recovery.
No, I struggle to believe that we can't. I mean, I see quite often on Facebook, again, as much as I hate Facebook, it's a great tool.
It is.
And I just.
However, somebody will very graciously give me a ride. They won't give this individual a ride. And so again, that stigma is really playing into this. It's very difficult for individuals to, recognize that, yes, they've made some pretty shitty decisions.
Yeah.
And then when they're trying to make better decisions, the community, and I get it. I also wouldn't, was not standing in line to drive this individual by myself to Red Deer Recovery. That's not what I'm saying at all. But again, stigma is really playing a factor in
Actually,
what we can do.
After this is done, get a hold, because we're transporting to and from Red Deer on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
So I mean.
And there's just, extra barriers there a little bit, like they have to be in line by 8:30 in the morning. So.
Yeah, like I said, just.
Yeah.
Keep this in mind, 'cause like I said, we're up there a couple times a week, well, probably once a week on average. So I mean, if it means we leave that much
Earlier than
earlier,
normal.
then so be it.
For sure.
Thank you.
So the other question I have just around that, and I know we've struggled a little bit with drive happiness. Specifically the out of town trips or the in-town trips. Are these clients aware of drive happiness? Do they have the ability to be registered, get registered in the program? And
Like, we could help them register. No, they probably don't have a device of their own to use, and I've had chats definitely with Michelle with that.
okay,
However, the way Drive Happiness is set up with making your appointments and also, it's supposed to be in the seniors category of services. Many of our individuals don't fit.
okay.
Kim.
But you've been in conversation with Michelle, because I think there's the ability to massage some of those restrictions.
Yeah.
But it is still it
At the
is
volunteers,
still relying
yeah,
on volunteers
yeah.
to be available to drive. And I know we just had another driver sign up.
Yeah.
So I think we've got 4. I don't think any of them, unfortunately, are the ones that want to drive to Red Deer, drive to Calgary, or any of those, they like to do the in-town
Yeah.
trips and,
Right.
and,
And might not have the credentials isn't the right word, but to have somebody with those complex needs as a passenger in their vehicle. Talking about massaging drive happiness, we're really excited. We've worked with Michelle and Drive Happiness and one of their volunteers for Wednesday.
Yeah.
So one of the volunteers from our Drive Happiness in Hanna on Wednesday now is coming to Provincial Building during food bank hot lunch time, because we have quite a few individuals that weren't checking all the items on their food bank list because of having to carry it home. So now they're getting a ride home with their groceries. So that's pretty cool that we've been able to tweak that to help them with that Wednesday.
okay, yeah, and just transportation's always been a challenge, and I know not that we expected Drive Happiness to be the end all be all, but, and it's progressing. But I'm just wondering, whether, these clients or these people, are A, aware of it, B, there is a process because you have to register, and there's a process to put your appointment in. And so I just didn't know if that was happening, so.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
just, I have a silly question.
No.
So I'm on page 34.
Yeah.
And so I have, it's interesting because on this here, it says they want to be in Hanna, but, and then there's lack of services and crime. So I have a question. I don't know the answer because I'm racking my brain. If you know anything about Hanna, we do not have enough infrastructure in place to help these people the way
Right.
that we need to help them. So some of these people are not from Hanna, like they're new to Hanna in the last 5, 10, whatever years.
Yeah.
So my question is, and I'm not being an ass, I just want to know, what would bring them to Hanna if we don't have the infrastructure in place to help them?
Cheaper to live here than where they were.
Yeah, but I mean, cheaper is fine, but if we don't have the infrastructure to help them, then
Lots of people don't know that when they're moving here. We have an individual who moved to the area because this is where they could afford
Okay.
to buy a house. Called us up and asked us what time the handy van came around to do community pickup. And we're like, excuse me? And he said, well, I'm in a wheelchair. The last community I lived in had a handy van that went around every few days, and that's how I would get access to the services that I needed. And so trying to explain to this individual, I think sometimes we take for granted that just because we wouldn't move somewhere without knowing everything. If we were in a community where we couldn't pay our bills, we couldn't afford housing, we had the opportunity to move to a community where we could afford our own house that we've never had before. We would move and then try and figure those pieces out later.
okay.
And it's unfortunate. It's not great. It's not how we would want it to be, but that's the situation that we're in.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, there's places and
There is.
that
Yeah.
have better support mechanisms
Yeah.
and
It costs more.
and they cost, well, it does.
And they do.
And and
Yeah.
unfortunately, like I said,
And we've seen that and, with our schools, we have individuals, we had a mom come in and she was like, oh, my child is on the spectrum. They had like a highly specialized school. We couldn't afford to stay there. So we moved here. What sort of resources, like, do you have a autism support group? And we're like, no, we don't have any of these things, which it's difficult for us as service providers
Yeah.
because those individuals then are now part of our community and they're going to likely stay because they actually can't afford to move back.
And the transportation is a big one.
Yes,
How many people have moved here who do not have a car?
yes,
And in many cases don't even have a driver's license.
yes.
They're literally stuck here until at the mercy of someone giving them a ride to their medical appointments or whatever out of town.
But it's interesting because when I was in Stony, and again, at that time, the population of Stony was 18,000. We would have people move to Stony. And you think, and they would just move there and they go, oh, where's the bus?
Right.
We don't have a bus. What do you mean you don't have a bus? Well, we don't have a bus. Well, how am I supposed to get to Edmonton? You know, some people just don't necessarily understand that there are differences in each municipality and they didn't do their homework. Again, at that point for them, it was cheaper for them to live in Stony Plain. So I'm gonna move to Stony Plain, live in Stony Plain, didn't do any homework. And they get there, well, what do you mean you don't have a public transportation? We don't have a public transportation system. So if you want to go to Edmonton, you need to find a ride or take a taxi. They had taxis, but again, taking a taxi is a significant cost. So it does happen everywhere.
Yeah.
In terms of that.
For sure.
And it's very surprising when we talk to individuals about the little homework research that was done. So I don't know if it's just like survival mode as well, Danny. It's like, okay, this will fix our current situation. And like Becky said, we'll figure out other things. But we're finding lots of individuals are moving to our community, purchasing homes, like sight unseen. Sight unseen.
Yep.
They're,
I see the highlights, but no.
yeah, it's surprising to me. If
Well,
I was moving, I think I would do a lot of homework.
Especially if I was a handicapped individual.
Right.
Especially coming to Hanna, and I mean, I'm gonna say this because before I was mayor, we're in the middle of nowhere. And now I rephrase that, we're in the middle of everywhere,
Everywhere.
and people, it's funny because I order quite regularly from vendors. And so right away, the first comment I get, well, you must be a Red Deer customer or a Calgary customer, and I'm going, I am literally in the middle of everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I am 2 hours to Calgary, I'm 2 hours to Red Deer, I'm 2 hours to Medicine Hat, 3 hours to Edmonton, 3 hours to Lloydminster, 4 hours to Saskatoon. And they go, oh, so whose customer are you? I really don't care. I just need my parts. And for us, and as bizarre as it is, the freight out of Edmonton is cheaper than it is out of any of those other centers. But I've learned that as time goes on, and I struggle a little bit because even if you bought a house sight unseen, you have to look at a map and go, where's Hanna? And I mean, just the geological of where we're located, to me, would be a huge factor to good, bad, and otherwise. The other one that I looked at here is the crime rate. I follow a page up in Lakeland community. And it's St. Paul, Bonnyville, Coal Lake, Elk Point, and then there's 3 reserves and a couple of AT settlement. They average 2 stolen vehicles a day, not a year, well as we do here, but a day. And so when people come to me and tell me how bad the crime rate is in town, I go, it's not that bad.
But it's what you know,
Yeah.
right? You have to,
And
the
what you-
perception of what we know.
Yeah.
And if we haven't had a whole lot of crime before and we're seeing more of it, well, then, yeah, it is a big issue.
The other thing the other story theory that I heard, again, not firsthand, but that some of the, our people who might be our homeless people have said, yes, they're homeless. They know that we don't have the services here, but they feel safe here. Where being homeless in the city, they don't feel safe because they feel whatever belongings they have, someone's going to take them or someone's going to beat them up or whatever. They don't get that sense here. So even though they don't have some of the access to services, they feel safer being here.
Yeah.
So,
And I would agree. One of the things that we know quite well is that things like the mustard seed and safe heart, like places where we are housing homeless individuals are very unsafe. And so we will have individuals who will right out refuse to go. If we're looking at housing a female, definitely we're not sending them to a co-ed shared accommodation facility. With that said, we can't get anybody in, like Dre said, we're standing in line. There's lineups starting at noon in order to get a bed that opens at 9 p.m. Calgary just opened a new all-female facility. There was women standing in line. They stood in line for 18 hours before those 48 new beds opened.
Well,
And-
just for your info, I know council was at the AM conference.
Yeah.
That was probably the highlight of I don't want to use the word highlight, but the
Yep.
most talked about issues at AM and even resolutions were dealing with homelessness, with mental health, with all those kinds of issues across the border.
And it's, the intersectionality is perverse, right? I don't really have an individual who's not housed, who doesn't have, 10 other things going on, right? And that it's all sectors crossing and we can't fulfill these individuals' basic needs. So then we can't move them up, the hierarchy of having them deal with things like mental health and addictions.
And then getting employment,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of employers, that's. the
See,
first thing if
Alberta
they
Health
want
has a lot
addiction.
to do with this. I mean, like,
Exactly.
they don't recognize mental health, they don't recognize, addictions.
Yeah.
And it just, I think they're based down.
And it is interesting to note, Alberta Health Services has changed their procedures. So they now do something called centralized intake. It's probably been 18 months, 2 years maybe,
Not quite.
that they've done this. So in order now to access Alberta Health Services, mental health or addiction services, you have to call the 1-800 number. At that time, if there is somebody who answers the phone, you then have to do a 90-minute on-phone intake. With that said, I don't actually know anybody who has called the number and someone has answered the phone. So
Yes,
then
I do.
one,
We have,
one time?
yes.
Okay.
And they started the 90-minute process and didn't feel comfortable giving that person the information on the phone. And so discontinued.
And then, leaving a message and having them not return phone calls, like it's a very onerous process. And that Alberta Health Services has moved to a mandate where you are only able to access their services if you have diagnosable mental health disorder. So things like grief would not qualify. That's not a diagnosable mental health disorder. You would only have access to grief counseling through free services if you had complex grief. So that means that whoever or the incident that your grief was related to was over a year ago. What's another good example?
Well, and just the
Oh,
fact
comes
that our numbers locally then are not reflective of the services
Right.
people are requiring. And so thank goodness in our community that we have some other options because of support of council and egg society in special areas with, some of the different programming. But our community is then again stepping up to fill the shoes of what Alberta Health Services should be. Because right now they're saying we have these numbers. Well, they have those lower numbers because people can't get in to see them.
Well, the whole thing is, I sort of sit on that part of that board and it's triple. The cost went from $2,500 a month, to almost $7,500.
Well, and
So
we've talked here too, and again, I've had this conversation with Michelle. At the end of the day, council has been supporting this program, $12,000 a year, now 18, now the projection for 24 is 30. there comes a point in time where council's gonna say to us, hold on, I don't know if we should continue down this road because that number never seems to be under control, always increasing, and
But
it's
we
a
know
tough-
why, Kim.
we know why, but how do we fix the why?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
I did want to mention about that housing insecurity is the face of that person has changed from what it was where the guy walking down the street with the cart. Oh, that's a homeless person. But having lost my home, the assumption made by the community after the fire was, I'm sure she's fine. She's got people who'll take care of her. I was living in a motel with no money and no food and terrified. And I am someone who's very housing insecure and continue to be. But on the outside, they assume people like me are fine because we have people. And we don't have people and we're terrified. But we're not walking down the street with a shopping cart. And that is what the council needs to understand, is that there are people out there who are terrified, who are working every day. They're not lazy. They're not sitting on their butt. And that's any conservative communities immediately assume that they're lazy, they're alcoholics, they have drug addictions. Not the case. These are hardworking people who are, just because of circumstances out of their control, are in a position where they will be homeless if it doesn't get fixed.
Absolutely.
And that's a really hard stigma in a town like Hanna to fix.
Yeah, I would agree. This Venn diagram just shows respondents' safe spaces identified. So our housing insecure respondents versus our housing secure respondents. So things like the police station and the church were identified. Links, the hospital, housing insecure individuals were applied with nowhere is safe for them. And then that crossover in the middle of like home, library, work. And then if you go to the next one, this is same diagram of unsafe spaces. So interesting to note that, and I guess Sandra, this actually kind of links back to that question that you had about, partnering with businesses. Looking at respondents, both secure and insecure, businesses are seen as a very unsafe space in this community. I can't speak to why.
Well, I wonder if it has to do with stigma as well, like shoplifting. And it can be anybody, it can be a shoplifter, it doesn't have to be homeless or whatever, but maybe just having more people in there and looking at them and just that, wheels turning and such.
Yeah. Our insecure individuals identified the parks, Main Street, and the courthouse as unsafe spaces for them.
Could some of that be linked to some of that could be linked to mental health as well,
For sure.
just this fear factor.
Yeah. So 86% of individuals mentioned public transportation. And then as far as like housing respondents, overwhelmingly highlighted the need for affordable and accessible housing options. And there also was a few comments in there about more affordable and available childcare services. So just overall, moving forward, again, having these really important conversations of what does homelessness look in our community, trying to dispel some of the stigma, and then really looking at what we can do with the services and resources we have. At Links, we have had conversation with community partners, Big Country Housing Authority, Fred was there, had some conversations about next steps and what we can do to work towards, having the ability to house individuals, having the ability to try and decrease the housing insecurity. So things like having power turned back on, having, heating, those sort of things. So we are having those conversations. It's just going to be a slow process that needs millions of dollars. So if anybody has any, can you just let me know?
Sorry.
So there are, just to follow up on that, and I don't know all the ins and outs, but I know the feds have been pushing their housing accelerator program, but that requires partnerships. So, and I don't know much about Big Country Housing's role in their connection to the province, whether they, from the outside looking in, not knowing everything, my thought was that would be a good place to start, would be through Big Country Housing, then be talking to the provincial partners and saying, hey, we need more affordable housing here, and coming up with some options and working. There might be some funding available. There might be some funding that has to be raised locally or participated in locally, but I know in the cities, they talk about affordable housing projects. So what that means is a developer will build a 100-unit apartment, and he'll get some grant funding for that. And out of that grant funding, he'll have to have 10 of those 100 considered affordable housing and have them capped at a certain rent. So, I don't know if we don't have those developers here who want to turn and build a complex like that and put their dollars on the line as well. So,
Do you want to add your 2 cents about next steps?
Yeah. Yeah, so Dre came into my office yesterday and mentioned the meeting that she had. I was out of town when they had their meeting. But we decided I'm drafting a letter to all the various stakeholders, the town, special areas, Big Country, Prairie Land, anybody. There's been a lot of different discussions over the last couple of years about housing in various forms, whether it's affordable housing, dormitories, seniors housing, multi-units, anything. There's lots of programs out there, and I haven't done a lot of research yet on them. Lots of the programs, I think that Kim's alluding to, require a ready project before you can apply or access the funding. And we're not, as far as I know, nobody in the region's ready to approach the feds or the province with a project. That being said, I think if we get all the appropriate groups in a room and say, what are we looking for, or what do we need, whether it's affordable housing, some transitional seniors housing, to keep seniors retiring in place, Prairie Land, had their international program, but I think dorms, they've talked about dorms. I know they're haven't talked to them for a while about where they're at in some of their conversations anyway. But if we could come up, I think, with a project. So I was at the conference last week and there was a developer there, and he's a housing developer. They're working in Fort Saskatchewan and Sherwood Park and the big Highway 2 corridors, right? I asked him, what's it take to get a developer or a builder to come out here? And he said, honestly, your better bet is to get your local. I said, we have a couple local builders. I'm not trying to cut them out of the conversation, but I mean, they're busy doing their own thing, right? Or doing what they're doing. He said, actually, your better bet is to try and get them to expand and increase what they're doing, because developers aren't going to come out here without some kind of incentive. They're busy building and developing in the cities, whether it's housing, regular housing, or apartments, or affordable housing, or multi, whatever. They're flat out busy in the cities, right? So why would they come out here and spend more money to get less chance of profit? It's a business, right? But I also kept the conversation going with him and said, well, if there was a project that, what would that project look like? And he said, well, there's got to be some other mitigating factors then. So is it something like more affordable land or cheap land, right? As opposed to the city? Or is it, no property taxes on a unit until the unit's sold, right? So what's mitigating the risk or the extra cost of a developer building coming out here? So I said, yeah, that's. So anyway, I think what we need to do is get everybody in a room, talk about what our needs are, and then come up with a plan of how we can attract, or, I mean, again, not trying to cut out our local builders, but you know, how much capacity do they have to increase what they're doing? We know Dale's building units now, right? Can he all of a sudden turn around and build another 10 unit space, or Big Country, who knows? But how can we get a builder or developer, whether it's local or from out of town, to come here? So we need to figure out what our need is, and then say, okay, what is our shortfall, or what's the difference between doing this project here or doing it in the city, and how do we mitigate that difference to get somebody to do it out here? So I'm gonna send that letter when I'm back next week to all the groups that they're interested groups, and hopefully we can get together and come up with some ideas.
But I think the local guys are struggling to get workers, you know, as far as availability of qualified
Well, that's-
carpenters and that sort of thing. It's hard to get people to come out to the rural areas.
That's just
So I
it. Like,
think
why
that's
would a
huge.
builder, we can't expand what's out here, and then the builders, why would they bring their guys? And if you're building a house or anything in the city, the guys go home at night and they drive to the project and go back home. Out here, they have to put them up in a hotel or whatever. Like, there's just added cost. So we have to figure out what that difference is, and then as a community, mitigate that difference so that it becomes at least a level playing field to get somebody to do projects out here.
Does Big Country Housing then deal mostly with seniors complexes? And
Currently,
not-
they have a mix of seniors and then low income.
And are some of the people in the low income housing, are they in there? Like, there's a maximum of what they can earn to still stay in low income housing? How closely is that monitored? I guess I've heard somewhere that there are, maybe it was on the media or something, that there's some people that are staying in low income housing because they've made it their home, but their income has increased and they haven't been.
Well, and every housing authority has their own specific protocols, policies, and procedures. And there is units, like we looked into units in Drumheller, and Three Houses company that has, and they have in their complexes a combination of low income, but also the ability, if those aren't full, they will rent out the next place, but it'll be based on a regular going rate for, so say it's, you know, $1,000, then
Yeah.
I would pay $1,000 to stay
Yeah.
there for rent. So, and I think that's the lens that we really need to look at as
Mixed
well,
availability.
is that very flexible to make it work for our community.
But those, I'm assuming that those places that you just talked about, they must be subsidized from somebody for the low rental suites.
Absolutely.
Because as an investor, if I'm not getting subsidized and I'm renting it out for 500 and I can rent it out for 1,000, I'm gonna take the 1,000 every time as a business.
100%, Kim.
So there must be some funding that's coming in to provide the owner of the property with that assurance.
And that's why it's, I would think, such a crucial step to have the housing authority part of this
100%.
conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all know that Jim is retiring, but we've had conversations, and he's had conversations with his board that their group would be very interested in moving the conversation ahead, because ultimately we need somebody that would manage it
Yeah.
as well, right? That
And is
that's-
already connected and
Yes.
has
Right.
the,
that has
I
the
think
protocols.
I think they're key
Yeah.
to moving something forward through
Absolutely.
that, so.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be. No developers coming out here. I mean, builders or developers will come out and build something, but they don't want to be out here permanently managing it.
Yeah. so-
Well, or prefab stuff where, you know, that's a lot quicker and easier. It's built somewhere else and then you bring it out in sections and you can add on to it as you need it, you know, compartments. Any other questions?
So I guess I'm glad that we're moving some, that was gonna be my comment, that we need to get some sort of steering committee together or somebody together to try moving that issue forward. And the other question I had, a little different than homelessness or housing insecurity, but all tied together, is what are we doing as a community to address the failings of Alberta Health and mental health?
Like, what are we going to do as a community?
Well, I don't know, have we had any, I don't know if you, DeRay, have had any discussions with our MLA in terms of what's happening with that system? Do we as a council need to become active in lobbying with our MLA in terms of those things? Because that's, you know, our family and marriage therapy program picking up the slack is not the right answer and is not the sustainable answer.
It's not solving the problem, it's just providing yeah.
And it's allowing a very skewed data set to then justify what Alberta Health is doing.
Yeah.
Because they're actually not, like, they have no accountability to answer to like subsidized counseling services in the community. And then it gives them the ability to say, oh, hey, like, look at our
Services aren't
numbers.
needed.
There,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we've got no calls from Hanna for service.
yeah.
When they're taking the easy route and getting service in a backwards way that
Well,
isn't
in a
costing
way
them
that
anything
meets
that's easier.
Their
Yeah,
needs. And
yeah.
that's the thing, is Alberta Health Services exists not to serve clients. They exist to run a system in a way that is,
Self-serving.
yeah, basically, yeah.
It's the complexity of those needs that the marriage and family counseling cannot serve.
Oh, I disagree with you there.
Oh, no, this lady, she could,
I do disagree with you there, with the credentials of the 3 clinicians that agency has on
Thank God.
staff. Other than they would do a similar referral like mental health worker would in our Hanna hospital if they needed a psychiatrist or something like that. So I disagree with the quality. I'm just saying that our community shouldn't be accountable for providing those services when it's an AHS mandate.
Absolutely. I actually had to move a family member away from the community to receive assistance because it was not available for years. And the referral system is very difficult. Even if you get in to see a doctor, they're just not interested in providing any services to someone with mental illness.
It's very broken.
So,
I would,
go ahead, Mark.
sorry, I was just gonna say the conference I was at last week had municipal type leaders like yourselves from across the country, like Nova Scotia and Manitoba. And this is not a unique conversation. The conversations around the tables for days were housing and support systems and all that from every community across the country. So this is not unique to Hanna
Like
or
Kim said,
Alberta.
Alberta communities, probably a third of the vote or resolutions were related to.
Yeah, and the same discussion was there. It's like it used to be the job of streets and roads and arenas and sewers and water. And now it's healthcare and policing and everything else that's being downloaded. So.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not unique to where we are. And there's no short-term fix. This housing, and I think I said it last time I was here, housing's not a short-term. You can't just start popping up houses and apartment buildings everywhere.
So DeRay, can I ask you to work with Michelle or whoever and draft a background report
Like a brief.
on our situation we have with AHS and mental health and counseling? And I'm quite confident that, you know, if we could provide that information to council would be prepared to, you know, write letters and try and meet with Nate and start the process of trying to explain to them what's going on and how it's going on.
And I believe that's probably,
And I think special areas would probably
Yes.
join us in it. We just need to have that background report that indicates what's happening, how the system's flawed and failing, and how our local community is picking up the downfall on the backs of our taxpayers. I know that, we use FCSS
Yes.
dollars from the province, but we overexpend what we
Yeah.
need to spend on the projects. So it's just, like, I look at that and we're probably between sort of counseling services, we spend over half or close to half of the money that we receive from FCSS on providing counseling services in our community. And I'd have this conversation with Michelle and I say, even those counseling services probably entering into an area where 10 years ago, the province would say, well, that's not an eligible cost for FCSS because FCSS is preventative. You're into past the preventative stage, and you can always argue, well, we're preventing it from getting worse. But I think that that's something that we need to do, because it's not going to be a quick fix and a quick turnaround, but we need to start the ball rolling.
And I believe it'll be a much stronger voice if that comes from your council, from special areas board to the MLA, like for those elected officials
Yeah.
to send it up to the elected officials.
Yeah.
Would you also share it with like Oyen as well, or to get all the special areas people as well? or no?
Possibly.
I just
Maybe
can't
later.
speak
We
on
can't
their
s-
behalf.
No, but to send them a copy of the letter.
See, I don't know,
to see if they want
for
to
example, in
support it.
Oyen, I don't know what they do in Oyen around this situation, because I'm not aware of them having a similar counseling program, but I don't know. So
They,
have a similar
they
one?
started one.
They started one?
Yes. And they
And-
used ours kind of
As a
as,
model?
as a model, yeah.
And the 3 Cs.
And the 3 Cs is starting one, they're raising money right now. They're having fundraisers so they can.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Well, 10
Well,
years
it's
ago,
just-
it might not have been as big a problem as it's getting to be
Yeah,
nowadays too. that,
Yeah.
And with COVID situations and isolation and all that, it's probably gonna be growing.
Well, and it's also good that people are feeling definitely more comfortable to seek services.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that many years ago
Oh, yeah.
that lots of folks absolutely would never have considered that just because of the judgment or
Yeah.
the stigma, right? So that's positive that people are seeking the services, but I also don't think it is responsibility of the municipalities to completely fill the gap.
Yeah,
I'm thankful. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The residents, it's not their responsibility supposedly, but, I think maybe a lot would like to help. And there may be a bit of a linkage and maybe there's some people falling through the cracks that might have led to increased
There
crime
absolutely
rates
is.
and that sort of thing.
Absolutely is.
And just out of frustration and.
Absolutely. I don't have to guess, Sandra. I actually know.
okay, so if you guys can do that,
Okay.
I'll give Michelle a heads up too, but if you guys can start and put.
And we did
something-
talk about it actually at our last Hanna. Yes, so we will take that away and connect.
Yes, there's just so much downloading from provincial government to local municipalities, like, the mutual aid with the fire department, your departments, it's just doing this, and I see it, even the last 2 years I've been here, we're probably up, I'm gonna say $40,000. That's a lot of money.
It is.
So, and I don't know that next year, it's not gonna be any better next year, I can tell you that, I just don't know how much more. Like, there comes a point in time where you can't give what you haven't got.
Well, we talk about, and there's lots of conversations about affordability, right? So, that impacts council as well. And so there's increased demands, increased needs, increased support, yet council's on the other hand going, okay, well, we've got to limit taxes, we got to limit tax increases, because that's all part of affordability, you know, so we increase taxes as people who have a home that are struggling and their taxes go up by $100, that's more of a challenge for them, but council gets caught in, how do we do this? We know these people need the help, the service, and we feel for them. The way we have to do it is we can increase taxes, but that's gonna hurt some of those same people. So it's a really challenging situation.
It's not just, you know, the homeless and the low income people, like it's everybody.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, like, you know, price, like I'm on a fixed income, you know, I do what I do and I get by with what I got, but I mean, you know, if utilities keep going up the way they are, I'm gonna be in the line for age, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, it's just getting terrible. That's where I think government has to be, you know, directed and step in. They gotta put a cap on some of this stuff, like it's just getting unbearable for everybody. It's not, you know.
But I mean, and that's the thing, Fred, like you know, I'm fortunate enough, our house is paid for. But I look at a young couple, you know, a couple of kids.
Yeah.
I just cannot fathom, like you go to the grocery store and, you know, you walk in and you pick up a couple of bags of groceries and you walk out and you're $140 to less. I mean, it's not like you walked out of the shopping cart, like you have 3 bags in this hand and 1 here and it's $140. I look and around the community and there's so many young families that I don't know how they're ever gonna make it. Like it's so disheartening almost. Like, I mean, and it's not that they're not trying. It's just you need to heat, you need utilities, you need somewhere to live, and ultimately it seems that everyone's going backwards a little bit at a time. I know even at the shop, I've got guys coming in that are pensioned off, looking at their pension going, I don't have enough money to get to where I want to be. So I've got half a dozen guys on a list that drive for me once in a while. And I mean, it's a little bit extra, but it's a couple $100 here and a couple $100. I mean, it's immense help to me because I can't afford a full-time staff person to do that. So, but like I said, it's very disheartening to see these people that have worked all their lives and thought they had the world all figured out. And it's not that they need the money, but to maintain what they have, it's very sad.
But then, and you get to top that off. So the core things, a lot of the things that are affordability issues, council doesn't have any control over. So other than their own water and sewer utilities, but other utilities we don't have any control over. We do have control over taxes to a certain degree, but we don't have control over cost of groceries or any of that stuff. But one of the tools council has is because we operate facilities. Okay, well, we can charge more at those facilities, recoup more revenue to offset the costs. But then you're at the point, then you're going, okay, well, those families and those young kids who need to participate in those activities and those groups, be a part of that, are not going in those organizations because, well, we just have enough money to pay our utilities and our food. We don't have anything to pay for their hockey fees or to travel with the hockey team or any of those things. So, you know, council has control over that, but they also have to have an obligation to the taxpayer to, you know, try and recoup. So it's such a challenging situation.
Well, and I completely have empathy for being in that position. And, you know, reminding ourselves of the resiliency of the community, and the importance of, you know, working together because we can do better together, and doing things right and doing the right things might not be the same at times.
Well, and back to, this is gonna sound weird, me versus one. I know some people, my parents, lived in a house that was built in the 20s, diesel burner. their idea of a weekend out was going cutting a load of wood. Other people, that is deplorable. How can those people live that way? They have a dog in the house, there are a couple cats in the house, but they're happy with that. Other people need to have the, 1,200 plus square foot home, they need a new car, they need this, they need this. And I struggle sometimes with need versus want. And it's having my parents in the situation that they're in. I mean, and they're still happy doing what they're doing. I mean, you go there, you leave your shoes on, you walk in the house, and it's just, it's not my thing, but they're happy. And my family, my siblings are all, well, how can mom and dad live like that? And I'm going, well, stepdad's 90, my mom is 78. They're very happy in that situation. I can't imagine them trying to conform to an apartment building or assisted housing of any kind. Like, I mean, that's their thing. And I mean, I admire, I do. It's funny. It's that need versus want, and they're probably the two happiest people in the whole wide world. Lots of people bug my mom about trying to get dad into town. Well, if you move my stepfather into town, you may as well move him just east of town.
Yeah, into
because-
the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, and it's unfortunate that, we sometimes get mixed up with need versus want. I mean,
And our perception, my perception, and your mom's perception on what would make each of us happy is very different.
oh, for sure. I
And
mean,
we have to be okay with those
Yeah.
differences. I don't need to put my thoughts, my perceptions on somebody else. And we run into this often
Oh, no,
at
we do.
things, right? We don't want to put our biases on other people.
and it's hard.
It's very, very hard. And, people
Walking
make
the
great
shoes,
choices, people make bad choices. And as Links, we're there to say, you know what, we'll try again tomorrow.
And I think that's, the other thing I just want to say as we wind up here is we're talking about a lot of not so nice situations and
Yes.
things today. But at the end of the day, I think we have to also take some pride in terms of what our community is doing. Are we perfect and are we meeting all the needs? No. But I look at things that we have in place with the family marriage therapy program. I look at things that Lynx is doing with the career side and with their hot lunch, and I'm looking at the food bank. I'm also looking at, we talked about opportunities for family. We have a very strong kids sport program, very strong community youth fund program. And I think both of those funds are in a pretty good position. So there is some assistance there that our community has come up with and is providing. Community certainly hasn't washed their hands of it and said, no, that's not our responsibility, I don't care. Can there be more things? Possibly, but there are some very good positive things that this
Absolutely.
community is doing to help those individuals and those families, so.
Okay, any other questions on that?
You'll include the school, like PLRD, PLSD in your discussions as well, because they're dealing with some with their student breakfast program or lunch program as well and such.
So there has been conversations with leadership group at one time for like volunteering at hot lunch. However, the timing doesn't work well because it's at lunchtime.
No, but, and maybe there's something that can work with the school in some capacity. I'm not
Like
sure.
in relation to hot lunch, Sandra?
Well, because they have, the school offers a
Breakfast program, yeah.
that is basically volunteers and such.
No,
they're
not
funded
anymore.
from-
That's
They're
funded through education plus the teachers run that.
Well, there's a paid staff
Yeah.
member that does it.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't go volunteer. We haven't for quite a few
And
Yeah, I
years
we-
know
now.
we haven't been
We
asked
haven't,
either
no.
for a while, so I
No.
just, yeah.
I
So
believe they got
should-
I'm gonna say like $70,000 to fund that over the last 3 years.
Something
So
like
they're
that.
dealing with some issues as well through the children. of some of the family members that might be deemed as home insecure as well.
Well, I imagine there's quite a few.
Yeah, so they may
Yeah.
have some input and some quality, never mind. Some quality input to contribute towards any student.
Yeah, they were
Resolution.
definitely one of the partners that came up when Mark was going to address that letter. He would be
Okay.
including Prairie Land in it, yeah.
Thank you.
And that is a really important piece of this moving forward, is making sure we're leveraging partnerships, because that's gonna be the only way that we're able to move
And
this
there's lots
forward.
of challenges with volunteering as well. It's not as simplistic as it should be. I mean, even to referee hockey, you have to do their criminal record check.
Yes.
I mean, and, to help out at various places, you have to have criminal record checks. You have to have, and forgive me for my lack of knowledge, a young
Vulnerable sector.
vulnerable sector check. And it's not just as easy as going in and helping anymore. And it's a challenge.
And our detachment is
Phenomenal.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Because there's many other places that actually the volunteer has to pay
Yeah.
to get those done. So
And that may help deal with the stigma, as far as addressing stigma through the youth, and kind of changing maybe some of the perception through the youth that could take it home to parents that aren't in the situation, and change people's perception. And
Okay, so can we get a motion to thank Gray and Becky for the presentation on the Alberta 2023 Housing Service and Estimates for Community Report undertaken by Rural Development Network in conjunction with Links. Councilor Thorough, all in favor? Thank you very much.
thanks,
Uh,
Becky.
It was actually kind of funny to scroll through this. I've gone through it about 5 different times. I've got little highlights in my head as to what I want to talk about. And
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Becky.
Yeah. Thank you.
all right, Ag Center.
Yeah, let's change gears.
Yeah.
You gotta take your hat off. and put the new one on.
From one plot to the
We'll
next.
do a 180.
Uh,
That one, isn't it?
This is the one. Yeah. If we do slideshow from the beginning.
Yes. Oh, okay. There should be some in the fridge.
Thanks. I've seen this.
You have. Thanks very much, guys, for the opportunity to give you an update of the Ag Center project. So we are going to be a small team today to give you the update, just to know folks' work schedules and some family circumstances. So Katie is wearing 2 hats at
Oh,
this
I didn't
moment as
know
well. Katie is the secretary for our group. And of course, Mark with Harvest Guy has supported our project. And I sit as the site building director on the project. So backgrounder, just a quick backgrounder of the project. The project emerged from community consultation. Initial stakeholder engagement sessions envisioned a community place that leverages a strong agricultural history of the region and provides multi-beneficial services to the community, addressing both immediate needs and long-term desires. Recognizing the importance of local insight and industry knowledge to guide the project, we did a business case, and it was developed through public consultation with local residents, municipal administrators, business leaders, ranchers, farmers, association, and subject matter experts. So over 30 interviews were conducted, and it resulted in the insight as the basis for the development of the Harvest Sky Agriculture Center. And this has been years in the work. The latest team has been working on it since late 2020, but there has definitely been teams before us that have been working on the idea. So that's just a quick
20
background.
years ago.
Oh,
Easy.
Mike,
easy.
Laval, Hal Nicholson, Scotty Dixon, and myself drove to, I'm gonna say probably 15 different
Yeah.
facilities and different ideas and yeah,
It's not a
It's
new
not
one,
no.
new idea concept.
Yeah, no, it's great though.
But I think we're really making steps forward,
Yeah.
Danny, working off the vision from over 20
Well,
years
it's
ago.
before my time as well,
Yeah.
I'm sure, so.
So just for information on Harvest Sky's website, if you scroll down to the bottom of the website under the projects, if I'm wrong, Mark.
Yeah, it's on the economic development tab and you scroll down and you see this.
And so our committee minutes, as well as some key documents that we've worked on, are loaded on that website, so they always have access to them. Okay, where are we at in project stages? So this is a simplistic vision view of where we're at, but it really identifies the process. And like I alluded to, there was years and years and years and years of visiting before this, but right now, in this particular project, this is where we're standing for activities. So defining the different stages of the project is important for understanding the project's progression and activities involved. This project plan assumes planning, construction, and commencement of commercial operations for the event center and riding arena, and the rural community practice will occur simultaneously. So what have we been up to this year? So in January was the last time that we had opportunity to give a really high, quick level update to special areas board at their advisory, and some town councillors were able to attend that day. So this is some of the things we've been up to since January. And this was a really validating process to go through putting the presentation together. Because we did check the boxes. Okay, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. So as you see on the slide, our committee has worked on, the development and what a 3-year plan looks like, our monthly meetings, facility tours, information gathering, working with Reimagine, Insight, Summit 72. We've been able to
So
host.
Gray, you might want to just explain those groups like Reimagine, Summit 72 to council in terms of who they are and what they're doing.
Absolutely. So Reimagine is the architect firm that we worked with. And so a little bit later on, we have some conceptual designs to share with you. Insight, which we've worked with for our marketing and visual branding, communications. Summit 72 did our initial business case, and now we've done an updated business case and budgets. We completed that in August. So those are the 3 different organizations.
Summit 72 did the economic impact assessment as well.
Thank you. Yep. Those is who we've been working, our committee's been working with. So yes, we did these sessions. And then if we go to the next slide, Katie. And so on this slide, we were going to title it our biggest disappointments, but we thought, let's not do that. So because working through these, and even though they were disappointments, it got us to next steps in the project. So we applied for the Green and Inclusive Community Building federal grant. We received a letter of support from Damien Keurig, our MP, and a letter of land commitment from Pace Canada to submit with our application in February. Mid-July, we were notified that we were unsuccessful in our $16.5 million ask. And then site location conversations with Pace. So we have been in conversations February through September on that particular site location. In September, after the final conversations with the landowner, we now have decided to move on to looking for a different location. The site landman that was supposed to be our conduit for communications with the landowner
quite possibly might not have had the conversations we thought they were having. So we put information to PACE in August and said, if we haven't heard back with you by, this date in August, we're going to reach out to the landowners. And we didn't hear from them. So we reached out to the landowners. They were not in the loop of all the conversations that we'd been having with PACE, and they were not interested in doing a sublease agreement for our project. So it was a little bit of kick in the guts, so we pouted for a day, and then we got on with it.
Pace did say we could approach the landowner.
Oh, for sure they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I
sure
think,
they did.
But then, when we talked to the landowner, they didn't seem to be as up to date on the project as we thought. We assumed they were.
Yes.
So like I alluded to, we've worked with Insight to complete our branding and visual identity, the strategies including user profiles, key value points, marketing and communication plans. We've connected with the former CIA fundraising committee for their guidance. We've compiled a list of 75 names to recruit to our fundraising committee. And we've made a short list of top 10 that we're going to do initial ask. We've completed our conceptual design process with Reimagine. We will be revisiting that with a new land location. Completed an updated business case and operations and capital budgets with Summit 72. And we've discussed into a new site location possibility and started initial conversations with landowners. So the completed conceptual designs, updated business case, and the visual identity has not been shared publicly on Harvest Sky's website, as we're working on finalizing the timeframe that we want to release and launch that. So whoever's watching online, please keep this just quiet for a little while, because we're going to have a big splash coming up. So introducing Exhibition 31, Alberta's premier egg center and services. So if we talk about the key value points, we're pretty thrilled to unveil the name of the project. We've been internally talking about it for months and months and using that language, and sometimes I catch myself. People don't even know what I'm talking about, but it's becoming so familiar to me that, Exhibition 31. So this is where some of the naming comes from, be in the heart of Township 31. But even though that we're saying, that's where it's going to be, we want to go far beyond those boundaries. So we are on a mission to bring together farmers, ranchers, researchers, educators, entire rural Alberta community to ignite collaboration, ignite innovation, ignite future where agriculture, ranching, and rural living thrive sustainability. We want to be known as a rural gathering place, cutting edge animal health and welfare, and a multi-generation legacy. Let's talk about the economic impact. So as Mark mentioned, the economic impact assessment was done by Summit 72, and that was done for us in November of 2022. So the analysis indicates that construction-related activities are expected to generate a one-time total economic impact of 6.5 million in GDP and 54 full-time jobs during the construction. Furthermore, the activities associated with the project will support local businesses on an ongoing basis and over term, contribute more to the resiliency of local economy, specifically project operations, and the resulting visitors to our region are expected to generate a total annual income benefit of 2.7 million and support 31 permanent full-time jobs. We go to the next slide, Katie, it's just two tables. And so your first table, table 6, that's just during the construction phase. And then table 7 identifies the ongoing economic benefits. And Lonnie from Summit 72 has broken into the direct and indirect
benefits to our region. Anytime you want to jump in, and to Katie, anytime you want to jump in, please do.
Can I ask you where did they get their numbers?
So I'm not an economist.
'Cause
And
this is one question when I was sat on the board before, where are you guys coming up with?
so we didn't
Yeah, where
do the
these guys
research.
come?
So that is their forte. So as that consultant, that's what they do, Vern.
Yeah, I know.
There's economic calculations that you use when you spend a certain amount of dollars, what the ripple effects, how the turnover. So, I mean, one of the basic ones in economics is, a dollar spent turns over 4 times in your community
Yeah.
before it leaves. So there's formulas and
Yeah, I know
calculations.
there's
for this.
formulas now, but so, you look at numbers like, really, it's I've looked at other same style. It doesn't,
But
come up with the same numbers.
You gotta remember, this isn't direct revenue on the revenue for the complex.
No.
This is economic impact. So this
Yeah.
includes if, when the rodeo's there and somebody stops at the gas station to gas up, or they go to Tim Hortons or wherever
Hotel
for a
room.
meal, or and they stay in a hotel.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
this is economic impact to the region or the community by having this facility in place. It's not the revenue of the facility itself.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that good, Vern?
All right.
Okay. So this is the conceptual design from the outside of the event center and riding arena. Once the site is selected and confirmed, future phases of work required, for the selected site will be reviewed much deeper. So everything from soil testing to parking requirements will have to be done. So this is the floor plan. So this is the arena surface, so the main entrance. And in our floor plan, the arena surface is actually sunken. So when we talk to the next section of the concourse and we'll have a gradual
Something like the hockey
incline.
rink.
Sorry?
Something just like the hockey rink.
But it's sunk, yeah. So we won't have to have an elevator. And of course, all of these floor plans and the conceptual design, now we're changing gears of location. We're in communication with Reimagine to make sure that this still would fit potentially a different site location, because they had figured in, the contours of that land and different things. So none of these are finalized. It's not a blueprint level, but it's good working drafts for us. So we've had, multiple groups work with us on the floor plan.
Floor plan there that'll be able to hold the professional barrel racing.
Exactly. So, identified right in it is the barrel pattern. So we've gone back and forth initially. We were talking 250 feet long and 150 feet wide. We've gone back and forth, and we're actually going to tighten up the arena a little bit to 215 and 150, but not change the footprint. So there'd be more working area outside of the arena for your bobcat, your tractors, your different things like that.
Yeah, because that's a big one there where Oyen
Can't host.
Didn't have it, because the worst thing about it, if you can't hold a professional one, that's where the money is, and to bring in the big contractors.
They didn't make it big enough?
No, not long
And
enough.
and the worst thing about it, they can't expand.
Oh,
Yeah.
so now they're struggling. Aren't they still struggling?
Oh, they're doing great,
Oh, they're doing
but they're
great now?
very limited in
Limited.
some of the events they can host.
We
Because
actually had, sorry,
No, jump in,
when
Mark.
we had some of the stakeholders and the consultants, like Dre said, they went and toured and compared to other
Yeah.
facilities, whether it was
Yeah.
Oyen, Rimby, Brooks. But
Statler.
there is one of the consultants on the project had brought in, his name's Ken Kendall. He was brought into, because Rimby, they were having all kinds of issues after they built their facility. So anyway, Ken was the one brought in to help fix the Rimby situation. So we brought him in as part of ours to say, okay, hey, what went wrong in Rimby? And lots of conversations with him. And one of the things that's kind of applicable is he said, in some ways, don't overbuild it. You want to make sure you can properly house the events and the things that you want and that are necessary, but don't build it big enough to have 100% of the events because you have like anything else, you have to heat and light and all that kind of stuff, right? So, if you build it massively large so that you can attract every event, but
It's only one.
20% of those events are only once a year, are you really going to get it? Does it cost of having to heat this thing for 365 days? What's that?
Need what?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Need and want. So it was, again, lots of the discussions, as DeRay mentioned, we're scaling it to where it's appropriate for the events we want to have, but not overbuilt to kill this project with extra space.
Yeah.
And even on some, and it's a little bit more detailed than this presentation, but the part on the north there, if I remember correctly, like those squares is like there's an off part off there. It's not heated.
Right.
There's cold
No,
storage
none
and
of it's
stuff too.
heated.
So lots of that's been taken into account as you don't necessarily need to heat all the spaces and have all the spaces within the footprint be.
Like those sorting corrals and stuff that would bring up to the run up and stuff, they wouldn't be heated.
They don't.
No.
Yeah, so
It's
so
just
lots of that
basically
has been
inside
taken into
building.
account with the design.
And we talked to, diverse groups, from our barrel racers, from our timed event, from our rough stock, from our cattle producers that are very involved with national cattle shows. So like there's wash space, very specific for equine and also for beef cattle. So if we're doing a bull sale or if we're doing 4-H show so we've had conversations with many of those groups. And our, I guess, really neat opportunity with the facility is that it's going to be diverse. It's going to be rodeos to rock stars. And the riding arena, there's really designed to host numerous events. So multifunctionality is really core to the design. As with many community facilities, there's a desire to reinforce and not duplicate. So meaning reinforce the good that is already happening in our community and not water down these great community initiatives by duplicating. So with that being said, many community events could relocate to Exhibition 31, taking off some of the pressure off of other town facilities, just with different scheduling and facility limitations. So along with reinforcing what is existing in our community, the new facility will be able to attract additional events to the community because of the facility type and size. And then again, we just want to make sure that we're sharing in the community and rolling out that it is not just for cowboys. We want to share that it's rodeo, rummagers, rock stars, stock dog competition, horse jumping.
Monster Jam.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Monster Jam, where's that gonna go?
So this is the floor plan of that second level. So we have where the gentle incline is, we want to be potentially our walk of fame. So we would like some, community names and pictures, and I think it's a fundraising sponsorship opportunity, but it's also a true legacy of members of our community that'll be in the building. So the opinion of probable cost for the event center and riding arena, and like we're swinging for the fence on this. This was done when we submitted our application to the feds. So there is some requirements that we had to put in that application that were zero carbon ready. So there were certain materials that we had to use, and that there was just certain processes we had to use in relation to utilities that were higher level building costs. So we didn't get the grant. So we probably will change some of that to be more cost effective. It also has listed all of our outdoor buildings, an outdoor riding arena that's covered, building for covering feed that we probably are going to look at doing at different steps. So if you want to bring up that, and it's very blurry. Kim, I will send
It looks
this.
cheap.
No, it's not.
I think we can afford that.
So swinging for the fence, the event center riding arena probable cost right now is $30.5 million. So like I said, it's all in, and there's pieces of it that we know will change as we go along the process.
And as it stands now, Dory, because of that denial of that grant, is there any guaranteed funding in place right now? Do you
We have $966.63 in our bank account.
That means hope, right?
Start.
Not an overdraft.
We are not.
So,
The fundraising component hasn't started
We
yet,
haven't
because we've identified that really to start, and we want to, kind of like the CIA did for Centennial Place.
Yeah.
You want to do it properly. You don't want to do hit and miss. You don't want to just start putting out an ask. But really the first piece of any successful fundraising program for something like this is having the site and having a
if you're
defined
not
plan.
prepared,
Something you could see.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and since our
Dennis.
site has changed and the plans will probably change, we need to nail down some other pieces before we go out there, so.
and I'm presuming you've checked with these little communities like Grimby and Stettler, how they did it and where they came up with the
Yes.
with the
And
cash.
what they would have done different. That was one of our questions that
Absolutely.
we asked them.
Having the fellow involved who was there to fix the issues certainly is a really
Yeah.
good start point. But it's
So
just
Rimby is now town, right?
I think county is.
County.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
because originally it was just standalone, I remember, and then it.
Well, and then there was a combination and then,
That's
yeah,
county run.
yeah,
They had to,
they had
they had to take it over.
Take it over.
From what we've heard, it was gonna be done.
It'd be a white elephant then if no one took it over.
Right.
Yeah, well, it was a white elephant, that's why they had to take it over.
Has that improved? Everything.
Oh,
Has-
I
think they're
believe so.
doing,
I think their
It's just the right
government, and
people.
we'll talk about, or Dory will get to it here, but I think governance was one of their major challenges that they didn't have figured out ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's even like the only facility, they kind of got it figured out now, because it was, again, going down that same
It was,
track of, demise, and they've got it kind of pulled
I
together.
think they're doing so well, but the conversation with OIN folks, their risk is that it's volunteer run.
Yeah.
And they're very open and honest with that, is they've been, the last 2 years, they've just been doing fantabulous, but they've been putting in hours, and that's not sustainable.
No.
We jump to the next slide. So in the updated business case that we worked with Lonnie on, he did do different analysis of other facilities. And so these two tables are examples of other facilities' revenue. So, he's broke out what they've been able to secure for government grants, and then their total revenues. OIN is one of the few facilities that then does offer a volunteer run concession. So their concession does make, them a revenue, but they're also having a hard time finding the volunteers to do it. So that's just a snapshot of some of the other facilities.
So I'm struggling a little bit, if you can go back to that one, Dory.
Yeah.
Just so on the revenue, when you say government grants, this is for operations,
Yes.
Okay, so we've
Yeah,
now
this is
switched
way,
into
they're not
operations.
capital.
So basically, the town of Rimby, in this case, would give a grant to whoever would provide $50,000 a year towards the operations. And OAN would provide $50,645
Yeah.
towards the operation of that.
What-
facility.
Or some government grant, it might
What's
be
going
ag
to
center, it
help,
might be something.
Oyen now is the government through the Ag Societies has $25 million for the
Yes.
next 10 years.
Yeah,
Right, Gord.
And they're pretty well, if you, where they're talking is putting grants in $125,000 that they can apply for. And you gotta use it within the 18 months, but most of these ones that we've sat with, a lot of them are already putting their money in. It's first come, first served, and you gotta have running projects right on the ground, ready to go. And like most of these places that are applying for money, their buildings are older than our hockey rinks.
Yeah.
And this is why the government goes through the Ag Society program. It's going to work this way for 10 years to help literally make an old building a new building.
Right.
So on the note of ag societies, I know, point, and I'm familiar with. So the ag society runs the arena as well as the ag building.
Mhm.
And so I'm not sure the logistics behind it. When I was very, very young, the arena was built in town, and the ag society, for whatever reason and taxes, I'm assuming, operates it. So basically, Elk Point Minor Hockey operates their arena as the same thing with the ag center they have up there. It's run by that group, but they all still fall into the ag society. So is that something that's,
So we'll chat about
Okay.
governance, and we definitely have had initial conversations with our local ag society and what that partnership
I
looks
just-
like
yeah.
moving on, Danny, because there is absolute dollars that the ag society has access to that no other group
Nobody
does.
yeah, well, and I know, that's why I was asking, because I know without the ag society involvement in the arena and the ag center up there, I don't think they'd operate. Well, I should say, I know they would operate.
Yeah.
So.
and even back in the
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to
90s when I
derail
was
you.
here, the Ag Society used to be able to get funding from the province that they were then able to put towards the operation of our arena
Yep.
annually.
Yeah, because we asked them about this money.
Mhm.
See, we don't have our name on anything or anything to do with any of the buildings. They said, we're just, we can't apply.
We'll have to sell it to the Ag Society.
You know, it's saying there a year ago when they had the light program for
Yeah, the lights.
LED lights, we could have got a 50,000. But
You're not the owner of the building.
I put the request in.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, I got a letter that faster than that I sent in, because, you know, we don't have any real, we donate to it. But that doesn't mean we have any ownership.
Yeah.
And that's where the big thing is. We said, oh, maybe we'll just buy it. They just laughed. Far from it.
So there's lots of conversations that we'll be having with our local community groups for partnership.
Yeah.
So the rural community of practice, and this is where Exhibition 31 project really is the uniqueness to anywhere in our province. There's, many different riding arenas. There's a few event center riding arenas, but there isn't this component of the rural community attached to it. So this portion of the project hinges on tenets of education, dissemination, and application. The trifecta will create an ecosystem where new ideas can be explored, shared, applied, with direct connection between livestock producers, researchers, and educators. The RCP will address important aspects of animal health and welfare while maintaining a focus on delivering services that will benefit the region and the environment. So the key functions of the rural community practice will be a livestock hub, which will be a collective of veterinarian practices in which veterinarians will be able to draw on expertise of other resident professionals and vice versa. So building that team. Applied research. So we're planning for a laboratory in the facility, and also local education and training. So leveraging the above professional services within the facility, the RCP will function as a site for ongoing training and communication between local producers and the community.
So you had asked Vermillion College and the Olds College to be participants.
So we've had initial
Because you have
conversations with Vermillion, Olds, U of C. The province has increased the number of veterinary seats in their program, and those students are going to need places to do practicum. So we don't have confirmation of confirmed agreements, but we have had those
You've had
initial
talks.
conversations, as well as regional veterinarians in our region.
Dr. Quashnick's working pretty closely with them too.
And
Yeah.
so Dr. Quashnick was here yesterday, and she was part of the team that we did a presentation for Special Areas Board yesterday. So,
Because I knew she was one of the,
yes,
she's been on board ever since she started, which
Yeah.
that was great.
This is her idea. as far
Yes.
as this.
oh, for sure.
And so this will also allow JCC or PLSD students to get some sort of experience as well, to see if they want to pursue veterinary medicine down the way. Yeah.
Is this a separate building?
Yes,
Okay. But that's still part of the budget?
no.
Okay.
Oh,
All that's a little up in the air because of the site change. So the original site plan, which was way back on the slides, was like a campus style. So the RCP and the main event building, and then camping spots for, if you have a rodeo event, they want to camp overnight, horse
Boarding
or animal
facilities.
boarding facilities. So quite a campus of different areas to generate revenue and have all kind of in one spot. Still a little
What
up
is
in the air.
the acre amount needed for this facility?
more.
So
Oh,
what
yeah, for sure.
want to need. So
Sorry.
we talked about, ultimately, we would love a package of 50 acres.
Okay.
And then we did some analysis and checked a different, we thought, to still not to have some opportunity for expansion,
Expansion. Yeah.
but we need 25 to 30.
Does that account for board?
Parking, it doesn't-
Boarding and
it
pasturing?
may are boarding options, but now we've also said, if we can find land packages that are connected, even though they might not be a square or a rectangle with, trails and different things like that, it just still work.
Mhm.
So, if you're boarding, your daughter's boarding her horse here and wants to ride over to the arena for her riding lesson, there'll be that opportunity. So, yeah, we thought we kind of had it perfect, and then we had to change, but
And there's also, like, we met as a group to say, what would our wants and needs, what's our basic minimums? I mean, you can find a square piece of land around here anyway,
oh, yeah.
but we want to be within a certain distance of town as possible to the highway and major traffic areas. So the criteria of what we really want is kind of putting us to look at different land areas as opposed to just saying, well, yeah, we could get a half quarter section out wherever. I mean, there's square pieces of land everywhere. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, you could go out to Cactus Corner and there's chunks of land and stuff, but where do you want to be? What kind of visibility do you want? What kind of access do you want? Kind of starts to narrow
Be
in.
connected with Hanna somehow, right?
Well, especially if we're doing, in the rodeo or different events and stuff, you don't want people to have to drive 20 minutes down the highway, right? So,
Or concert events, yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Welcome. And so if we go to look at the floor plan, and this too is swinging for the fence, there's portions of it that we might look at differently with budget constraints. One really uniqueness of the facility, of course, it's for large animals, but we have built-in examination rooms, also for small animals, as small animals are probably the best income for pets.
I got 2 cats, I know.
Yeah.
In the back, there is a garage as well. So, that mobile medical unit could be pulled in there. Really unique feature of this floor plan, as we have built in 2 very small dorm rooms, basically is what they are. So one of the biggest obstacles veterinarian students face when they're looking for placements during practicum is affordable and convenient housing offering. So 2 modest dormitories have been included in the design to help this issue. So the yellow part is where there would be 2 dorms. Also, so when they're not being used for practicum students, vets could utilize the space if they're on call or staying overnight to monitor a sick animal. The lab component would have outside access. You wouldn't have to come in the main part of the facility, so that can be rented out privately. So if there was researchers that needed to rent lab space for a certain amount of days, that they could access it from outside, so they would rent it in the facilities. There'll also be retail, office, administration spaces, like I mentioned, a lab, consultation rooms, a large animal exam room, isolation rooms, surgery, the integrated garage, and the leasable closed laboratory. So the probable cost for the RCP is, and it's obviously going to be blurry too, $4 million is what the current price tag on that facility is to set up as set up right now.
I hate to say it, that's not bad.
No.
I was expecting 8, 9.
Yeah. So that facility, and like some of the walls, they're 18 feet tall in the garden and stuff like that. Like in else we were gonna build in, so like a second level storage, maybe we'd bring those walls down. But so there's tweaks and stuff that we have to do.
And the spacing, again, with this facility, you need water access.
Yes.
So again, you can't be too far from water access, because you certainly can't rely on well water.
Oh, gosh, no.
So again, I
Yeah.
hope you're able to find
Yeah,
something.
so because my eyes aren't good.
Yeah.
to read this,
Right, turn
I
your
think I'd have to
head.
get an
Get
eye
closer there,
exam now,
Kim.
but the, so does this cost, as well as the other, the 38.5 million, include everything? Like when I say include everything, it's servicing, so all municipal services,
Site grading
site grading,
contingency.
paving, all of that. So this would have an allowance for
Yes.
municipal services as well.
And like the studies for the environmental studies, Kim, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, these numbers are all in.
Okay.
So there are definitely places, whether it's site changes, whether it's not having to do some of the stuff we're looking at for the green grant, or changes that we can make, or in-kind donations from a municipality that's willing to grade some dirt for us. There's definitely ways to bring this down.
And with the event center, we even as far as like IT, like tech, like there's a price tag in there for making sure that the announcer's booth that is connected to all the sound system in the building. Yeah. So the business model, It refers to the legal structure of the entity through which Exhibition 31 is going to operate. So selecting appropriate business models, so example, for-profit, nonprofit, is crucial to the success of the project. And, it will establish the operational guidelines as we lay the groundwork for clear decision-making, foster accountability, responsibility, and ensure compliance with legal and regulatory requirements.
I love your optimism. Profit versus nonprofit.
So the business model that our committee has chose is registered nonprofit. And we have applied in September to become a registered nonprofit society. So Exhibition 31 Society is in the works. So that is the business model that our committee has chosen to move forward with. And as the project advances and specific partnerships and business activities are identified in the future, Exhibition 31 may choose to address this constraint by creating a corporation. And that could either be a for-profit, non-for-profit, depending on specific circumstances, and moving certain business activities into that corporation. So example, that could be with some of the services with the RCP, that it might be better modeled as setting that up as a corporation underneath the society. So this can be structured so that the society maintains overall strategic direction and governance of the new corporation. For instance, like I said, the rural community practice could carry out a range of business activities as a corporation while still being under the direct control and oversight of Exhibition 31 Society. And this approach has been recommended by a number of legal professionals. So governance. The list of society founding director names were filed with the society application in September. And so for future governance structure, based on the current vision and mission of the project, it is recommended that we plan to transition from a appointed board of directors to a hybrid board of directors in the future. And this is really going to be where key groups like our egg societies, our rodeo association, all those players come into play. So the hybrid board model acknowledges the significant and local residents and project founders while also incorporating expert input from strategic partners. So it would be a mix of the elected and the appointed. And we know it's important to note that there is no absolutely perfect system which will address every challenge Exhibition 31 will face. As the organization moves forward, it is crucial to begin envisioning governance structure and supporting protocols that will help address the shortcomings that may arise. So these organizational decisions should then be entrenched into organizational bylaws. So we're thinking future. We know what we need to do right now. Guest version of where we're going. So our planning and fundraising activities, 2023 to 2025, planning and business development activities, 25 to 27. And so that'll work along the same time as construction phase. Commercial operations to begin in 2027 for both facilities. And a minimum 2-year period is required for revenues to ramp up a steady state operations, 28-29. This is a snapshot of planning expenses on the operations side. So of course, we're in the midst of saying goodbye to 2023 already, being the middle of October. So here's your snapshot of 2023, 2024, 2025 operating planning expenses.
So the consultant that did lots of the business planning and the economic impact assessment, all that, actually prepared we have a great Excel spreadsheet with lots of variables we can tweak in and tweak out depending on what different business models, what variables there are as far as building, grants, no grants, property taxes, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing we did, and it kind of alludes to this slide and the timelines, is that we said, for the next couple of years, we're still planning, we're fundraising, we're doing architect stuff. After that, you might be into construction, but you still don't have any revenues. And then as DeRay mentioned, even for the first couple of years of operation, you really don't have all your revenues ramped up because you're starting to say, well, the rodeo might be here, but what about stock dogs? What about tractor pulls? What about all the other stuff? So, you're talking, yeah, you're talking a few years, even be up and running, but not have full revenues and stuff like that. So we've taken into a lot of things into account in the financial modeling. And as Mayor Pavischuk kind of alluded to, no, I mean, the event center for sure isn't going to make money. Break even is probably a best case scenario. Hopefully, and that's part of where the RCP comes in, is that has the potential to help. That's where your revenue's helping cover the event center and that kind of thing. Again, and I'm not going too far too fast here to say at our presentation to special areas yesterday, there was a monetary ask to get us through the next couple of years here, 24, 25. And one of the biggest things, and this is what, again, Ken Kendall and the consultants said, to differentiate from some of the other facilities out there, like Oyen and Rimby, is we need to hire a manager.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be responsible for running the facility, but also be a business development person to bring in the events, make sure that you have everything running, all that kind of stuff. So that's really where, especially early on, you're going to see a big cost is person. And as construction is moving ahead, but the business person or general manager, or whatever they're called, is starting to attract events, is starting to attract veterinarians, getting all those pieces in place. So it's very key to have somebody responsible for running this and not try and put it on the backs of volunteers. And again, we've taken those numbers into account when we've modeled this out.
Yeah, and the working Excel budgets that we have access to and been playing with, we can put in, even as far as borrowing money in a different interest rate and how it changes the whole process over the year. That's where we were needing the support. Like, we knew we had to do it, but we didn't have all the tools to help us build it. So having Lonnie support us and bringing those tools back to the team, now we feel more confident that we have the tools that we can use to move the project forward.
There's a huge difference on the bottom line if you fundraise 100% of the money to build this thing, as opposed to have to borrow any percentage whatsoever. Like, you really start to get to a break-even point on the whole facility if you don't have any borrowing costs.
No debt.
And then the other big factor in there, and this is where the town might have to look at in the future, is property taxes. If this becomes a community type facility, the ask will very likely be to look at waiving property taxes. Because that's probably the second or third biggest component of being able to break even if there's no tax consequence.
Have you looked at a sponsorship, so that it's called, like the Hanna Chrysler building?
That'll be part of
That's
the fundraising. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is, and this is a little different talking to special areas group yesterday, but it's kind of applicable to this group, is again, that notion of taxpayer money into another project that's barely going to break even. The message we try to relay to them and to everybody is bringing some of these services, again, economic spin-offs are great, all that kind of stuff. Bringing some of the services like a large animal vet and some of the other research stuff. If you're a rancher in special areas, right now you drive 2, 3, 4 hours to find a vet or more, if you're lucky to find one. So your tax money might be going to help support a little bit of this, but the offset is you're not spending time and money on gas and everything trying to drive to find these services. So it's not a direct line between, well, my taxes go to pay this much, but it's in my pocket. But there is the spin-off of not having to find these services.
Well, that's like the economic impact. I mean, I'll go back to when I hosted that PV Tier 5 tournament. It's $52,000 to the community. I mean, you factor in the gas, the meals and everything, it's $52,000 to have 17 to have for a weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough to fathom, but if you pencil it all out, you realize it, then all of a sudden hosting that event is viable.
It also keeps Hannah
Viable.
viable over the long run, where they go, well, everything's in Brooks, I might as well move near Brooks. And instead, they're gonna go, well, I have that here. And that's taxpayers' money being spent wisely, because if not, there'll be no town.
Well,
Well,
that's
that's-
the other big side. We're in the middle of everywhere.
Absolutely.
Like
And
that,
it's
that's
supporting the ag
huge
industry.
economic development project, and I know we talk about the challenges with some of the people that have moved to town, because it's cheaper and affordable, and some of the challenges that they bring with them that we don't have the supports for. The other thing we've seen though is lots of people moving here, yes, because it's affordable, but they're retirees selling a larger property somewhere, they've got money in the bank. They're not choosing Hanna because it's cheap. They're choosing Hanna because it's got the services and the amenities like the walking tracks and the arenas and all that other stuff. And it's affordable, right? They're picking Hanna over other communities like a Vulcan or an Okotoks or a Medicine Hat because it's affordable, but we also have all the things they need.
And they stay because of the people. I got to that, even though some of the services are missing, when you come over that hill, you go, oh, I'm home. Even though you might have been in Vegas last week or whatever,
Yeah.
you just know this is home, and it's the people that keep them coming back, so.
And interesting with the rural community practice of attracting those large animal veterinarians and researchers and the spin-offs that we'll have currently, like when Dr. Tamara had her practice in Hanna, she spent 18 weeks a year on the road. So that was either preg checking or bull testing. So, but be able to have 3 to 5 vets home base in Hanna rather than producers having to go to them or those vets in Airdrie coming this way, we can do that, but this can be home based.
And you're supporting that agriculture end of it, and odds of maybe those ranchers contributing as far as sponsors or something, because they see a need for that and readily available. Like, how long does it take to get a vet to come out and do your print checking and do your semen stuff and everything? So
Well, as a producer, you know,
It's
I don't
huge.
have a choice to pick the date we want
You're
to
told.
preg jet
Yeah, you're told.
anymore.
no,
So,
it's
you
on
know, we had to
availability.
wean, we're Halloweening on October 31st because that's when it worked out to go to sale.
Yeah.
So when we phoned the vet, they said, well, we'll be there the second. We didn't get choice
Yeah.
because that's where we fit into
Yeah.
their schedule,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, interesting, interesting,
Mhm.
interesting. And so, I won't go into a big, long story here because Mark's done a really good job.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. You got excited for the next part of the presentation. Just the important part of realizing that we know it's going to be crucial to hire a general manager. And Mark's explained like that role in the project. And, you know, the first 5 years, that position is going to need to eat, sleep, breathe the project to get all the pieces in play.
A good manager,
Like
one that
competent,
knows and keeps it
connections,
occupied on a
yes.
regular basis, and
absolutely.
events.
So current support required, and we're here today, you know, for the awareness piece and the update, but also for the ask of
seeding the idea, as Mark has talked about, once we have site location and once the facility is up, there might be the consideration for those property taxes, what that looks like. Requesting possible in-kind support of equipment, moving some dirt. Town of Hanna does have equipment. Also, the support to help us navigate some of the permitting and different aspects that will be involved in the construction process of the project. So at this time, we're not coming with a capital ask, we're not coming with a cash ask to council, but we want you to be thinking about the project and opportunity to support the project in the future and what that looks like. Next slide. Oh, this is our brand story and it gives me goosebumps. And I'm going to send a copy with everyone today. Like we said, this is not, we're not sharing this publicly yet because we're not quite ready in timing to do the roll. You have 1,000.
Here, I can have a.
Okay, so
You already have it up. The most part. Thank you.
every time I read it, I get goosebumps. But, yeah.
Yeah,
This is the summary. This is what Exhibition 31
Mhm.
is. Our next and final slide just identifies the contact folks that have put their name forward to be on that founding board of the society. If you have questions, if you have comments, please reach out.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the thought of an educational component. And to me, that is priority and will sustain the other component of the riding arena and everything. And some have come to me and said, what do we need a riding ring? And well, it's the educational end of it that will supplement the others. So having a veterinary practice center, I think is a priority and it's huge. And then the extra bonus is the arena and we have to accommodate larger events and that's good. Yeah.
Any off the top other questions, comments? Where we need to change the presentation, open to all that.
Just the visibility of the.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there would be only certain groups that we
wanna share that
would
with,
share that with. Specific, and because they're not finalized.
Oh, yes.
They're
Yeah.
pretty, they're still a little bit a lot by the sky.
And you won't disclose potential sites until you're more discussion.
Yeah.
And definite discussion with the landowners.
And that's how you end it.
Yeah.
Black screen of death, I can relate to that.
Thank
other
you
questions for
so
Greg?
much.
Most of the council except Ray, Mark, and Katie for their presentation on the Ag Center. Motion sounds and vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we take a break? Can we take a quick break?
Yep.
Thanks, Kate.
I don't know how to get out of this.
Or if you just click
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
Just pull the plug.
Anybody need a water? I'm gonna get water.
We just.
I'm
due
for
The walkabout?
No.
Number 3 there.
Yeah, I think so. And then if you go down here, I always say. Oh, sorry. And then eject.
It's like a magical balance that one versus need with anything. You have to have it big enough that it's functional.
And I can't judge what you think is a want.
Oh, no, you know, that's the same thing, Gary. I struggle with the terminology affordable housing. You know, it was interesting, some of the comments, and I'm going, well, you're looking for a Taj Mahal or a mansion versus what you need. So, you know, as far as recreation is, a couple of comments there about recreation, or I'm like, we do okay here. If you want to be involved, there's a means of being involved, and but yeah, it's.
Always so many great things in our community, 100%. But it's unfortunate that the folks that support the most often are the ones most free tax. Yeah. Kim, do you want a copy of that? Would there be any
What's that?
need?
I'll have a copy of-
The actual large animal, but to take care of barrel horses.
Sure, we could share with council, at least they could see, at least the financial slides better too.
Well, and I could actually.
We had the Ag Society
Yeah,
up
I
there.
can print it off.
They built the barn, and,
Like,
you know, they thought they should be able to use this
do you want these?
$20 a person.
Yeah, we can scan those and send them.
Right.
Do you need a copy?
I need it back.
I'll make a copy right
Okay.
now.
The same thing, I supplied the open years on there for a number of years. And then somebody says, well, you're the only one making any money at this.
Where do you
I
think
said,
it's going?
"If you don't want it, I can get at it." So I
Do you know
sold
this
the
crazy
dandelion.
story?
I had
Chris?
that years coming up for the
So yesterday at 2:30, I get a call from my girlfriend because
You
she
buy 'em,
had
and I
made,
said,
she goes, I'm gonna
"That's
phone you at
perfect.
2:30. Is that okay? I'm like, sure. So I thought something was up, right? Something heavy. We're
Well, it
gonna
lasts for a month and
just
a
need to
half,
vote
so
time to
she-
this phone
she's
call.
buying
She
the
says,
rest
what are you
back.
doing Sunday?
I'm not-
And I
you
said,
guys-
well, I
you guys
gotta
are all figured out yet.
Get ready for next week
I
to
said,
feed my
"What
crew
community
for
service is
pride
it?"
checking and weaning and stuff. So I'll be making soups and stew. And she's like, well, on Sunday? I'm like, she goes, we go on a date with me? I'm like, okay. She's like, we're going to the Winter Classic. I'm like, serious? And she's like, yep, I'll pick you up at noon. I'm like, okay, I have to wash my winter clothes because there's cow shit on them.
Perfectly in there.
So yes, Lester and I are heading to the Winter Classic on Sunday. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing with my spare time this Sunday.
I'll have to head to my other job in about 15 minutes. And we'll just shut everything down when you guys are done. End the meeting. Thanks.
Somebody keep tapping it to keep it. So it doesn't-
I don't think there is any more because you have your own presentation, you know it?
No,
Oh, you don't?
No, the Nickelback thing's the only
yeah,
stuff that's on there.
yeah.
The rest I just talk
So
like.
now there's where you should make contact with Jim Pete. He owns that property out there that's prime location.
Yeah, might be one of the ones on the list, Fred.
And you could have Nickelback Museum in there
Yep.
for a couple million. Right?
That's
They
right.
should do that.
Well, I'll see them on Sunday. I'll start that conversation.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Have a good rest of your day.
Not much left.
My phone was on ignore.
What's that?
When it rang, my phone was on ignore. It was on silent when it rang there.
Oh,
That was pretty silent.
Do you want to scooch over so you can keep scrolling?
Oh,
behind
yeah, I
us,
can do
Steve, or what would work best?
sure.
Let's toss, let's curl.
Yeah. Only with a stick. Actually, thought I'd see. Thought I would just start with my other general update first anyway, because we kind of talked about some of it.
Is that further up?
There isn't anything.
Oh,
I don't
I'll
think.
just
I
start
didn't
here
do
then.
anything.
You just give me the nod when you want me to scroll.
Okay.
Scroll.
Which one are you doing first, Mark?
Is there, I didn't send in anything else for, I was just gonna do general update first before and leave, end on Nickelback.
Okay,
Is that all right?
okay.
Or do you have things
So go
listed
back
already?
up, Katie, to
Activity.
3.03.
Which one's right?
3.03.
Yep, that one there.
Yeah.
Is that okay, or do you have things in a different order that you want me to?
That's.
Okay.
That's the order that she has.
That's the order I
She-
have to
so-
Excellent.
Well. Got a bunch of. these are good. I would.
It will be there.
Sorry, you guys can go ahead without me. Go ahead.
We're just waiting for you, Wayne.
No, you don't need to wait.
Okay,
Go back.
we value you though.
Okay, thank you.
Call back to order. Mr. Nakota. Harvest Sky Economic Development Corporation update.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't prepare anything. I'm just gonna kind of update some of the projects and the things we've been working on. As I mentioned, during some of the other discussions, I was at a conference last week with some other municipal leaders from across the country. Lots of the discussions are very similar to the ones we're having here in Hanna in many respects. I like what Mayor Pavlichuk mentioned about wants and needs that came up, and kind of more in the form of expectations and how people are expectations of governments, municipal councils are all the time up here, and what we can provide or what you can provide are lots of times very different. And even in an economic development context, as well as I do, the economic development, everybody thinks, well, our expectation is jobs and factories and manufacturers and all kinds of stuff. And the realistic thing is that, you work on the community and the region's strengths and getting those out there and making sure that you can attract and be ready for attraction for business. Like some of the other communities are taught, expecting 1,000 jobs in manufacturing to come to rural Alberta just isn't going to happen, right? And if you get another power plant, it's a miracle, right? So really, and one of the other community members or leaders said, you have to take a long-term view, which I've always tried to do. There are no real short wins. I mean, if you get some, that's great, but this is a long-term game. You're setting the table for long-term sustainable growth, or in our case, just sometimes keeping what we have. So I kind of looked back to when I started and even just a little bit before that. So when the coal plant transition was first announced, and then you have the doom and gloom and people moving out of town, and you have housing, for sale signs up and down the streets and stuff like that. And people are like, the community is going to die and all that kind of stuff. And then, you have some grant money and you hire an economic development person to come in and try and save the town, or at least bring back jobs and all that. And you go, well, and years later, it was like, well, where's the jobs? What did you waste the money on, et cetera, et cetera. And I tried to actually, and I know I provided a broader update in June, but given that in the context of wants, needs, expectations, I kind of look back at the last few years that I've been doing the job and said, are we better off than when we started, even during the coal transition? And, the town hasn't died.
According to Mount Royal College, we have.
Oh, okay. But yeah, the town hasn't died. And really, if you look at the various things, the projects we've worked on, tourism, I don't know if you can measure that, but I think people are still coming here. We get, as Mayor Pavlicek mentioned, you get hockey tournaments and football games and concerts and all kinds of things happening where people come to town. That's a win, right? Residential attraction, I think we've been very successful on, and there's spin-offs to where we've had the housing discussion, we've had the social supports discussion, but we don't have 100 houses sitting vacant anymore. And as CEO Neil pointed out the other day, we've got new construction happening, right? We're talking about building ag centers. We're looking at business. So it's easy in the doom and the gloom of the moment to say the town's going to die. And it's even easier to say a few years later that you haven't done anything because there's no new factory and there's not 1,000 jobs. But I like to say that over the last few years, if you really look at it, a lot has happened. The community is sustainable, and we're actually in some ways growing. And in some of the investment attraction work that we're doing and working hand in hand with special areas on their industrial park, we're getting phone calls on a regular basis now for companies looking for space. And that wasn't even necessarily happening before. Local companies looking to expand, new companies looking to take advantage of the strengths of the region that we have, and whether that's agriculture or energy production in various forms. So I guess overall, and it came to light in my mind at the conference was how successful I think we have been, even though maybe visibly it doesn't look like much has happened. So I wanted to start with that. Some of the other things in the conference that are a little more applicable, like I said, we talked housing. There was a presenter that talked hydrogen opportunities. There was even a couple of discussions, presenters on downtown revitalization, and I know the town is moving forward in that respect. But again, it's that that maybe economic development and community development, which I spend a lot of time doing, isn't visibly lots of big wins with jobs and factories. But making your community attractive and making it ready, it includes community development, includes the trails and the paths that we've worked on and the signage. Because when people, and especially business, are looking to move and set up somewhere, they look at your community. It's not about I know lots of people think this, and sometimes our provincial government pushes it. It's not about the cheapest taxes, right? We had some of the presenters had statistics and surveys on what businesses look for when they're going to locate somewhere, and cheap taxes is not even in the top 5, right? Right now, as we all know, there's sometimes labor shortage. While they're looking, where's the labor? Well, the labor goes where the communities are inviting and where the communities are attractive, not where the taxes are cheapest. Overall, you have to be able to afford to live, don't get me wrong, but companies need labor, and labor goes where they want to live. And it used to be in the day where labor moved to where the job is. It's not anymore. People choose where they want to live, and then they find a job. So companies are now having to locate where the people are, not the other way around. So anyway, some very, very applicable discussions at the conference I was at. It was good. We talked about housing. We talked about the Ag Center, investment attraction, the special areas industrial park, and some of the other attraction work we're doing. Again, you're just hoping to build on the assets of the region. We've had a lot of discussions with energy providers, with agriculture, with some of our existing companies that work in town that are looking to currently expand. I really think, again, it's being optimistic, but I really think we're on the cusp of some more good announcements happening over the next year, so that will prove beneficial. And economic development, they always, you always want to see the new shiny factory, but I think the numbers are like 70 or 80% of your growth comes from your existing businesses. And I think that's going to prove out in our region over the next year or so. Stop me if you guys have questions, or I'm just going to keep
Well,
rambling.
I'd just like to make a comment that some of the studies and reports that have been done have put the town in a better situation for those looking at, finding out more about housing, about, other opportunities and about what we do have available. So I think that is a huge asset. And I think the marketing that you've done, Mark Marketing, has been part of bringing people into our community to buy our vacant houses and support our lumber yards and everything else. It's put money back into our community over the last couple of years. So I think that is huge and might be a huge contributor towards that. So I think there's more yet to come from the work that has been done that will people will see shortly. So I think that's great.
One thing I'll add, Mark, just on that note as well. Hanna has been very resilient over the years. Back in the day, we were an agricultural center. Then the CN Rail moved in, and we were a train town. And then the power plant and the mine come. And so then we transitioned to that. When I moved here 24 years ago, actually 25 years ago today, we were, the oil and gas industry was you worked for who? I worked for Gibson's Energy. But what do they do? Well, big yellow trucks drive up and down the road. Now with the mine transitioning to Humolite and the power plant going to natural gas, we're still, it seems to be, we're growing. And I know there's some exploration going on right now for Humolite in the Stanmore area. They seem to think that it's the next thing. So yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence, and we keep doing this and we keep rolling. So same thing with the property, economic development. You and I had this conversation before. You can't put a dollar to it because there's nothing you did directly to say that it's not measurable.
Yeah.
But like I said, our housing market is back to where it was probably pre-doom and gloom of coal. And we have houses being built, as Mr. Mill indicated. So I think we're doing well.
Yeah.
Well, and GFL, whether you like them or not, they are busy and they are paying taxes that is helping subsidize the rest of other things. So that I think is a real positive. In that sense, we have areas to work on and that sort of thing, but I think that is huge as well. So.
Yeah, and there's and working with a couple of the people over at Special Areas there has been great. We are in some ways at the convergence of a lot of necessary inputs to where some of the stuff is transitioning. So the industrial park, I know it's a little south of town, but it's kind of encompasses our area, between the NGTL, like the natural gas lines, the power lines, the water availability, and you're talking Humolite, so you're thinking fertilizers and additives. What was the other one I was going to say there? There's another
Carbon sequestration.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are, yeah, carbon sequestration is, thanks.
That's a tongue twister.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah. There's a huge, and Heartland and ATCO have they're the ones on the cusp of looking like our area to the south and east there. And I'm not a geologist or a scientist by any stretch, but the Cambrian underlay of whatever is like has huge potential for carbon sequestration. So now you've got, everybody is looking at hydrogen production. Well, you need power, you need the gas, you need the water, and you need a place to put the carbon, it's all right here. So, I mean, you know, I really think that overall, like we're in that kind of, you know, where agriculture was transitioning to oil and gas 150 years ago or whatever, you know, we're in that next transition, and it's almost like, you know, people are looking at all these different options and stuff. Not that oil and gas is going anywhere, but you know, there's all these different energy forms and all these different things happening. And I really think we're on the cusp of some other stuff, and I think we're well positioned for lots of that kind of stuff to happen right here in our backyard. So it's just a matter of time. So yeah, investment attraction, of course, that's one of our #1 mandates. Visitor attraction tourism, we'll talk about the Nickelback thing. I'm still working with the Roundhouse and some other tourism partners on visitor attraction and different products, as I like to call them, museums, tours, that kind of thing. Resident attraction, we've talked housing and resident in our marketing and stuff we've done there. We've talked about the Ag Center. What else can I update here? Community development, I'm sure you get regular updates about the downtown and the other stuff that's happening. Community kitchen project, I don't know if you.
No, I have.
Okay, so yeah, we're still moving ahead with the community kitchen project, which is looking at making food security a little more local, giving local producers the opportunity to have a commercial kitchen available so that they can produce food here that then can be turned around and sold either at farmers markets or retail spots. We are now looking at our second option is to upgrade the kitchen at the community center because it's a little more viable than the Lions Hall. So we've worked with the kitchen supply company to redesign some stuff at the kitchen there. So I'm still working on the Youngstown and the Hanna kitchen projects. Some things just take time, so it's moving, but it's still moving ahead. What else? Yeah, I guess the other, before Nickelback, the last one, so our immigration program, I'm not sure if council's aware, you probably heard that the town of Hanna.
Well, they're aware that we've joined into the Alberta Advantage or Rural Immigration Program.
So the province, and this, you know, everything's connected, right? You don't do one thing without it connecting others. So, you know, you look at COVID and the baby boomers and everybody started to retire, and then you need more workers because they're retiring. So then you open up immigration programs where immigrants need housing. So then you have housing shortages. I mean, everything's connected. So anyway, the province to manage growth and to try and replace the lack of workers started the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, and there's a rural renewal stream that Special Areas, Wanda Dykow, the Special Areas Economic Development Officer, applied for to get special areas in all the communities, including Hanna, designated under this immigration program. It's a bit of a convoluted program. The province rolled this out quickly, in my opinion, and left lots of it up to the municipalities to figure out. That's about as nice a way as I could put that. So anyway, we managed to work through the program. And what it ultimately does is it allows employers to attract immigrants. Once the employer, so a company, hotel or whatever, has identified that they're short of workers, they've tried hiring locally. That's one of the stipulations. They have to advertise their jobs, and then they can't find somebody local. Then they can work on attracting or bringing in immigrants. It's kind of like the federal temporary foreign worker program. I'm not an immigration expert. But what it does is it allows immigrants to come over here to fulfill those jobs while they apply through other immigration streams, like to try and get their permanent residency. So basically, as near as I can tell, it just speeds up the immigration program to get them here so that they can work while they're trying to become permanent residents of Canada. Again, I'm not an immigration expert. So there's all kinds of challenges with the program. You have to work with the employers. You have to work with immigration settlement agencies. Luckily, we have, I think it's Brooks Immigration. Yeah, that comes up here. So we've been in contact with them, working with DeRay and the Link staff because they have those connections with their job board and job placement and everything. So it's bringing all those together and having people potential immigrants apply. So I know in our immediate area, we've approved Cactus Corner as one of our approved employers. Thanks. I've working with a couple others in town to get on that list, and now they can apply. So for example, the Cactus Corner manager brought me six resumes of people from India that want to move here to work out at the truck stop. Now we just have to go through the paperwork and everything else to be able to get them approved in the program. They still have to go through. So what happens is we talk to the employer, then we talk to the candidates, we endorse the candidate, and then they have to apply to the province and have to do the background checks and all that. And then Immigration Canada, however that works, has to approve them coming here. So it's not as simple as identifying somebody in wherever, India, that wants to come work here and they're on the plane. No, they still have to go through a whole list of applications and hoops and stuff, but yeah, so anyway, we're involved in that program and hopefully bringing more people to work here. Then of course that opens up all the challenges of housing and everything else. So I don't know if anybody has any
Don't have to
questions.
Look after our own first.
Well, but that is one of the
Nobody
challenges
wants to work.
that
Yeah,
the businesses have to have proven that they have been looking locally and have not been successful.
See, and that's some of the challenges with bringing more people, and I'm not only saying Canada, I'm Alberta, Canada in general. So we brought all these people to here, and now we're having struggles with our healthcare systems keeping up, or the doctors keeping up. And I mean, it's doing this. I'm not opposed to anything as long as it's growing, but we have to be able to sustain it. There was a session at last year's Alberta meeting. Walked in there and the guy picked me out of the crowd and he says, Mayor Hanna, yeah. He said, I'm gonna build 250 houses in your community. What do you think? I said, yeah. And he said, okay, now you have the infrastructure to maintain it. Which we don't. We don't have another pool. We don't have another, I mean, we don't have that. He said, that's some of the challenges. He said, with major development and stuff is, isn't sustainable. So have the 250 houses, another 1,000 people in town, but ultimately, could we do it? I guess is my challenge.
Well, we had a problem before they started bringing people in. Like, they just couldn't handle what we had before for our own, well, for residents and stuff, and then, yeah, immigrants on top of it.
Yeah, there's definitely challenges. It also depends on what you're looking at. Lots of our facilities and stuff are underutilized.
Yeah,
Our hospitals
yeah.
underutilized, our schools had room for students. I think my wife said they had like 23 or 26 new kids
New kids
enroll,
this year, yeah.
which is great. I mean, that brings challenges because the people that sometimes move to town they need affordable living because their child has special needs, while our school division isn't set up to handle lots of special needs like they would have the support in the cities. Our arena isn't necessarily at capacity. Our other facilities aren't at capacity.
Well,
So
years ago, we had 3 midget teams, 2 battle teams, 2 PB teams, and I think there was 4 or 5 micro novice or mites or U7s now is what they're now officially called.
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, we're at about half capacity where we were at the arena, so.
Some of our areas have capacity, not necessarily housing. So what you had through the pandemic, again, as I mentioned, is people, nurses, teachers, those kind, you had lots of people that were on the cusp of retiring for many years, but they're putting in time or they're doing whatever. They're like, oh, they can work part-time, they can sub. And the pandemic showed that they're like, you know what, I don't need this anymore. I'm going to retire. So all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people decided to retire. Now we're short workers. In the past, when people passed away, their housing became available, right? Now, all of a sudden, people aren't in the workforce, but they're not gone. They haven't left their houses. So to replace them in the workforce, you bring people in to replace them, but you don't have the housing to put them into, right? So there's always a challenge. So yeah, I think the immigration thing is good for replacing workers and it's going to be good for some rural communities. It does bring its own challenges with it. So, but everything does. Is there any questions on general economic development projects? Anything else that I've been working on that we haven't talked about so far before we get to Nickelback?
Keep on, Mike.
Good.
We do one motion at a time.
Yeah, we can do, yeah, you can do the first one.
Okay, motion that we thank Mark for coming in with the Harvest Economic Development Corporation for his presentation of the council on the activities of the Harvest Economic Development Corporation. Motion, Mr. Olson, all in favor? Carried. Sorry,
No,
I'm getting better at this, that's why.
good. Gotta check the box.
Yeah.
You just want me to go on this or?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, so the Nickelback tour thing again, tourism kind of falls sometimes under my mandate or has been. Nickelback tours and promotional stuff actually is a good idea for tourism. And it's a product. I've said it more than once that, you know, tourism, you need products to sell. People want experiences. People want to come to a place where there's things to do. So sometimes bad news like entrance signs blowing up is a good thing, right? So anyway, long story short, I got kind of, I don't want to say pulled in, that's the wrong wording, but asked to help out on help the town out with their Nickelback thing, problem, whatever. So thanks to Mayor Pavlichuk, I've been in communication with the Nickelback's lawyer. Funny thing, I was on Vancouver Island this summer at a music festival. We ended up at Jason Peak's house one night having a drink and yakking about things. So, and I've talked to Jim Peak about his land more than once and stuff. So there's the guys, the band, and the family members are definitely no strangers to what's going on in town, which is a great thing. Yeah, so we put together a quick little proposal, sent it to the lawyer, I don't know what, a month or two ago, a month and a half ago. The guys are on tour and things take time, so things never move fast, but yeah, the guys are on board with doing some stuff. So what the lawyer came back and said is, yeah, go ahead, come up with some more detailed plans and we'll throw it at the guys when they're done their tour or whatever, and then we can, between Hanna and council and tourism and the band, we'll settle on what everybody's interested in doing and stuff. So I put together this a little more detailed outline. And it's all open for discussion. This is just me pulling in different parts of discussions I've had with various people, stakeholders, the band, etc. The photograph tour, for obvious reasons, that's the name, but I mean, that can change, whatever. The real vision, you know, tourism, but the band, we should be celebrating. I know out in the public, Nickelback is
Love to hate.
Yeah, you either love them or you hate them, right? There seems to be no middle ground. Well, whether you love or hate the music, the guys they're good guys. They're successful, and as a small town success story, they're huge, and I think we should be celebrating them. Like,
Well, and they celebrate Hannah.
they do. They've
Like
never
they
shied away from
acknowledge
mentioning
them,
that they're Canada and stuff. This isn't the case of some famous person moving away and begrudgingly saying, oh yeah, I grew up in a small town. Not the case at all. The goals, number one, celebrate the guys, they deserve it. Like they're almost top 100 in album sales in the world historically. Like that is no small feat. You know, I mean, I know Nickelback's not the Beatles, but when you really talk about metrics, they are up there. Like this is huge. So the fact that, you know, they're from Hanna is quite amazing. Actually, I was sitting next to somebody at the conference in Jasper, and the subject of Hanna came up, and he said, I don't know what it is, but every time we go somewhere, we meet somebody from Hanna. Hanna, you guys punch way above your weight, no matter what the hell you do, right? So, yeah, no matter where you go, you run into somebody from Hanna. So anyway, number two, the goal, increase tourism by getting people to turn off the highway and spend time and of course money here. And, you know, it's number three, the stretch goal, economic development, we'll kind of get to that. So anyway, phase one, signage and the tour. There's some various parts to signage. There's highway and entrance signage. And all this again is up for debate or discussion about what the council is interested in seeing and doing. I know there's some different opinions, but what really needs to happen is I need to I need the council to land on what we're doing so that I can move forward, getting costs and putting a plan together to present to the band. So really, I need some decisions made on what this is all gonna ultimately look like. So I think, my opinion, and why I put this together, you need, if people will come to town to see Nickelback stuff. If they plan on that, that's great. They're doing it from wherever, that they're thinking ahead. But if you want random people to stop off the highway to check out town and to look at tour stops, you need to advertise that before you get to town. Okay, as much as I agree with the electronic sign and doing stuff there, and even the proud to be the home of Nickelback monument sign stuff. If you want people to stop off the highway, you have to tell them there's something before they get to town. If you do it when they're right next to town, they're already going 80, 100 kilometers an hour. They're gonna say, hey, that's neat, maybe next time, and they'll keep going. Now, how many people are gonna stop? I don't know if it's 5, if it's half a dozen, if it's 20, but everybody that stops is probably gonna spend some money here. So that's economic development. So you need some kind of identification sign, whether it's those blue signs you see on the highway saying something exciting coming up, stop here. The entrance monument signs, whether we want to put something back on those is up to council. I mean, that was obviously the big fanfare in the media. Again, it's good to support the band. The question I see with those ones is, people thinking they have to stop there in the middle of the highway and try and take a picture and causing some kind of issue, but people are gonna stop in the middle of the highway for all kinds of things, so I don't know if somebody stops and gets, yeah, so, and then,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think if you've got these other blue signs out, do you need another thing for the Hanna sign? Like if you can leave that off. And if the Nickelback tour could show accommodation as far as housing, or I'm sorry, as far as the hotels and things, I think would be beneficial as well.
Yeah, those are, what's on here is just concept.
No, I know.
Yep.
But, yeah, that would be my input is put these Nickelback signs up there, but make sure that it's not people thinking that, well, Nickelback's in town, let's do. The Nickelback photograph tour, I think would be great. Marker and everything, and just leave our sign alone.
But with the big Nickelback ones, the tours, first you gotta get government permission.
Yeah.
to put
Yeah,
them ones up.
transportation,
And
but we need to have a say yay or nay to go ahead with that.
And then, sorry, the third part of the electronic sign, I know Lori has started investigation on that. So anyway, the first part of this is the signage, and I guess what does council want to see us investigate and come forward with? There's 3 kind of different signs there. You can do them all, you can do none, you can do a combination, but it would be good to get a little direction from council on which ones you want to pursue. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's fair. We're not in a decision-making meeting.
No, but yeah.
We need some direction from council to bring something back for a decision. And as Mark said, we could do, I think the highway signs for the Nickelback tour are a given. Again, we got to go through the process and have approval from Alberta Transportation and work with them on locations and stuff. I think the real decision for council is, do we go back to putting Home of Nickelback on our entrance signs in addition to the electronic sign? Or do we leave them off the entrance signs and just have them on the electronic sign?
Maybe I'm imagining this, but we've had this discussion just recently already of putting the signs back up. I thought it was
But we've
basically
never,
consensus,
is that what's consensus is? That's what we can bring back for.
majority
I
anyways.
think residents,
I think one and
local
two.
residents would appreciate the ones back on our entrance signs, more so than anybody.
Yeah, and that's what we had
Yeah.
decided last time. We said
And
was
that was a
big
big
concern.
concern.
in that electronic one, though, you gotta look at the finances.
Well, we're not doing
No,
the
not-
electronic
not-
estimate, but we're putting just a fixed.
But, and the other
Message on
thing
there.
is, like the entrance signs, like they could put up signs saying no stopping along highway or whatever, right?
They're
I
still,
mean,
they're not
they're still stopping.
I know, but at least you got the.
They stop all over the place. Sylvan Lakes, they might.
Stop for emergency.
I guess
stop for whatever, but I
the
mean,
challenge is, certainly we can bring something back to, like, we need to bring it back to a regular meeting for a vote and a decision. We can certainly bring that back at the November meeting to do that. I just wanted some consensus, because I know we originally, the decision was made not to put them on. And, you know, whether council's good with reversing that decision and putting them back on. So I don't know. I know that there's some opinions both ways around the table, so.
I like 1 and 3. We've already taken that off. And if we can modify it and have the safety for people to pull over and do their thing, then I would be supportive of the Nickelback, the blue Nickelback signs and the electronic sign in a fixed signage saying proud to be the home of Nickelback. That's my vote, sir.
Well, I'd do all three. Put the highway signs, and I guess Darren will do his work if people want to stop all the time.
Looking, Councilor Murphy, what are your thoughts?
I don't remember the meeting, and it could be, was it last fall? Was it around the time of the fire? I don't remember the meeting
Okay,
where we agreed to remove it because.
Oh, I was removed before the previous council, I believe.
no, it was this, when we were redesigning these signs,
Redid the signs.
this council made a decision not to
Yeah,
have them.
I don't remember that because I would have been, well, that's nuts. People are gonna be cranky, and that's exactly what happened. So definitely has to be. So all of that's very important.
I don't remember
Yeah.
it being put that long. Sorry.
Councilor Thurl?
I like number 2 idea and number 3, but
So this is kind of, again, it's a bit of a work in progress. My thought, and I guess my recommendation would be that I would bring something back to council where we would ask to have Nickelback, home of Nickelback, put back on our 3 entrance signs. High Signs, the company who made our signs, have volunteered and donated, said they would donate that, so there will be no cost to have those put back on those 3 signs. But the other one, we might need to change. We always were focused on the electronic portion being a static sign saying proud to be the home of Nickelback. Initial thought was they pull off, they're safe, they're there. I think we're probably gonna have to, maybe depending on what happens in the next phase, we might want to change that sign to say
Home of the Nickelback tour.
Nickelback tour starts here.
Yeah,
So I think we might need to tweak that one to say that, because in our plan, that would be the starting point for someone who wanted to go on the Nickelback tour. They would go to that sign, they would get their further directions on whether they're gonna go visit particular sites or whether they're gonna go visit the murals and the QR code. So I think it might have to change a little bit to.
I think that the message might sign. I guess what I'm asking is, do you want to investigate putting something on the electronic sign at all, whatever the
So-
message is?
You mean electronically?
No, I mean
Yeah,
permanently, but,
No, definitely, we want to put something permanently
okay,
on the
yeah.
electronic portion of the sign.
Okay, so really the only kind of debate is on the monument signs.
Yeah,
Okay,
Well, I'm good either way, but my preference would be 1 and 3, but I can bend
To do them all.
to 2 as well,
so
especially
no,
if there's no cost to it.
okay. So look at doing them all is kind of what
Yeah.
is the rough consensus.
yeah, and we'll
Okay.
get that to council. At the next meeting.
I gotta take off.
Right.
Okay.
Come late, leave early.
Yeah, I'm late leaver.
That thing called the job.
All the new ones.
terrible.
Okay, sorry, moving
Yeah,
on.
moving on.
The tour details, so we would have smaller little signs, and I didn't include it in here when I was in Jasper, they have little signs with maps and stuff on them, right, and with different points, and you follow them
Thanks
around,
for
we did
helping
in
us with
Delia
that.
as well. So you'd have smaller tour signs will be put at key locations around town to guide the tour. You have the ones on the murals, obviously, and I've got just snapshots of the murals here. photograph video sites, so like the school, the primary school that's no longer there, or the National Hotel that's no longer there, or, you know, some other stuff that's no longer there, but we put a little sign up saying that, hey, the video, this was, and you'd have a picture of it with the video and that was there. And then maybe some other sites if we want to add in, like especially, we want to put this back to the band and say, do you have some key sites that you want to put a memory out there, right? So we're not excluding the band from saying, you have some really cool sites. So the first one, as CA O'Neill kind of alluded to, would be at the electronic sign. And that would start the tour. There would be, everything will have QR codes so that they can bring stuff up online, more information. But the first one would basically have all the sites around town starred so that people could look at it and go, oh, I go here, go here, go here, go here. Okay. Murals, we put, I'm hoping, and again, lots of this is up to the band as well. Put a QR code on the murals that then would, you know, when somebody would click on it, it would bring up a video and it would be the band actually saying, oh, we wrote this album, blah, 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 or we really hated this song, or who knows, whatever the guys want to say and or do, right? So
Yeah, I think that's great.
whether they want to do some video or short clips for us or not, or I guess depending on what they want to do, the QR codes might just go to a website, a tourism website that has some additional information, but hoping to get them to actually do some video clips and really make it something kind of special.
You'd also include the ones on the library and the,
Yeah, wherever, yeah.
parks.
Where they're all of them,
I
yeah.
think they're somewhat forgotten.
They're all, there's all of them are actually, all the pictures are there. Those are pictures of the ones on the buildings.
It's just a shame that most of them are now empty lots, and it doesn't reflect well to go, oh, and this is another empty lot, and this is another empty lot. So picking the photograph tour, even though it was absolutely wonderful,
Libraries.
if they were still there, it would have helped, but you know, to have them go to the dentist's office, that's just.
Well, I absolutely get what you're saying. I mean, in some cases, it's better to have no building than a piece of shit building. Yeah. But on the flip side, some of the sites, like ultimately tourism and economic development, you want people to spend more time and go around your town. So even though in some cases you're going to an empty spot,
Yeah.
especially downtown, I want those people downtown because then hopefully they stop and buy coffee and do a few other things while they're downtown. So even though they're looking at the dentist's office instead of the National Hotel, at least they're parking downtown.
You can also put a historical marker in there that has a picture of the old National and it has some history about it. Sort of just at the site, they've got a distance, they're on their sidewalk close to their building, will give you some information.
Yeah, so that's the plan. would be to
Again,
have a sign.
again, those stops would be subject to permission from the landowners.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Prairie Land would have to give us permission to say, yes, you can put this sign on in this location on our property. Dr. Dave would have to provide his permission as the owner of that building to have a sign on his
Yeah.
building or in
Or
the
just
standalone in the
nearby,
parking
yeah.
lot or whatever. So there would be some work to do with the owners to get their permission.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's something you
very
could
so.
put into the, like, or having those bump outs or whatever, you know, stuff like that.
Possibly,
You could
maybe
have,
too.
You know, something there too.
Yeah, and although the Roundhouse wasn't involved in this discussion at all, I'm sure that we would be interested in perhaps something like a little clip of them running across the turntable.
Yeah,
But
so yeah,
that's what our
that's
board.
the school, the trains, well, the visitor center now, and a dental, the Roundhouse and stuff would have a sign affixed in some way with a QR code and hopefully the band or a link to the video or something would be on there.
And yeah, Jerry's for sure. I mean, that's their
Yeah.
favorite spot.
Yeah,
It's
so,
Jerry's Burger Barrel.
and that would fall into the other tour locations. So, and the band would hopefully, and it's even mentioned on here, Jerry's, so, yeah. So that's kind of the signage and phase one, the tour. that we
See,
wanna do.
Mark and I disagree on this to a degree. Like I see the signage as phase one. Like the entrance sign is something we can get going here right away. I see the QR codes in the tour as phase two. And I think that's something that can be acted upon fairly quickly and probably in place next spring, next summer.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, it's phase one, phase two, whatever. It's just a matter of timing and we'll
Yeah.
do what we can as quick as we
But
can.
we need to formulate the plan so we're forward and we know which way we're moving forward. So
Yeah. Then the next phase, call it whatever you want. And again, call it whatever you want, Merit Walk, Wall of Fame, whatever. I know there's been many iterations around town for years about recognizing people. Again, tourism, we want to bring people to the downtown core. So whether it's Memorial Park, the old Truman Lot, the Legion Park, would be the final stop on the tour, or one of the stops on the tour. And it would have Nickelback as the first inductee, kind of launching with the tour. Possibly options in the future for other editions if people think it should go to recognizing other famous Hanna people or whatever. That's up for debate, and that's not part of this plan necessarily. It's just one of those things that's on there saying this could happen in the future. But the site there would be a sign or a plaque, kind of like you see on Walks of Fame or whatever. And then hopefully, if the band's up for it, a cement impression or a sidewalk block, kind of like they do at Romans Theater, right? And you know, of all the bells and whistles and the band is here and they lay their hand in the cement and the press is here. I mean, awesome. If the band's not up for that, we're playing lots of this by year until we get it all finalized.
Well, and
So,
this phase has, in my mind, has some more work to do, just in regards to location. We've suggested locations that are already town-owned to make it easier,
Yeah.
town-owned property. But I know even around our committee and our discussions, when we talk about Memorial Park, the comment from some people was, well, I don't know if that's a fit in that park. That's honoring our past, it's honoring our veterans, it's memorial. Is that, would it fit, or would some people be upset, offended that we're doing that to that park? Legion Park already is pretty much developed with the Poppy project and that stuff there. My suggestion, although it would be more cost, would be we have the property, the Truman lots, that would have to be landscaped. So there would be a significant additional cost to that one. And that was where I thought maybe the band would be interested in financially contributing to a project if they saw what it looked like and how. There's other options. We've got the land that we took over from Adrian Mole, just north of the York. It's not on your downtown, but it's in the downtown. So there are some options there. Some would require more capital to landscape and get them, prepared.
What is the Truman lot?
So that's where where the greenhouse is.
Okay.
It's called the Truman lot because the Truman Ford was there, dealership was there on that.
What year?
Well, I'm
Way
not
back.
sure when they left in the early 2000s.
Well, they were gone before I come here.
yeah, it's just about
Oh, they
before
were
my
here
time.
when I was
So
here.
half of the town has no idea what that means.
Yeah.
So,
But it is,
Well, we wouldn't market it like that.
no,
That's-
it is owned by the town, so.
Central
I like-
garage.
I like
Yes,
Truman.
So there's pros and cons with each one of those locations, and I think that would be a project that could be worked on to identify the pros and cons of these locations as well as the others in terms of, because once you decide where you're going and you start, there's no turning back, so.
Well, that would be a huge improvement on Main Street is putting it in Truman Lodge and having some landscaping and stuff. And that rental, the lease is for one more year?
I'm not sure, but we can terminate the lease if we had to. That's not a sticking point in the,
Yeah, and
in
it
the
doesn't really
discussions.
add a whole lot to the.
but it's,
No.
it is, the initial con with that lot is it would need
Contaminated.
substantial work.
Well, you'll have a lot of cleanup.
what about the lot?
Oil and-
Well, but we wouldn't have to clean up the soil though, Counselor Thorough, because we're not building on it.
Not going down.
It'd all be surface. So whether it's grassed or patio blocks or whatever landscape design would be, it would
Just
be
can't
above
plant the
ground.
trees.
So, yeah.
Can't plant no trees.
You could, you just can't
No, you
sell the
can't.
lot to somebody. Why?
Well,
Oh, there's,
we have the shell lot, and you can't go anything that's deeper than 4 feet.
Because of the contamination.
You can't plant a tree on there because the roots go down more than 4 feet.
Yeah, so there's some, that's the con with the Truman lot is.
Well, I know
that
it's
It would
contaminated,
need
but
some-
why can't I plant a tree?
What about the lot
Because
on
roots
Second
go
Ave,
further than 4
That's
feet.
the
just
other building that got
environmental
torn down?
There's,
Sign. Mains and Associates?
I thought it
It's
was
privately
only if
owned.
You're trying to get funding.
Oh,
It's been
okay.
purchased, we sold it.
All right,
Okay.
whatever.
I
You
didn't
put
know
a
that.
shrub or whatever.
we follow that road.
So just that phase will need a little bit of work in terms of pros and cons, but
Oh,
the idea is solid.
I just wouldn't want to leave it too long because you got the momentum. If the band's
Well-
interested in stuff,
Yeah,
are they gonna come back 5 years from now for doing this? But I mean, anything.
And they were
can
just
happen.
inducted. It's really important that we do ride that wave too.
There's the media part, yeah.
There's a Walmart that thought they called and said if they need anything, I've never called them back.
Yeah.
but There is still that.
Well, exactly.
Card to play if need be.
Yeah, so that's why.
I mean, they called me, I didn't call them, so.
There is phases to this, but again, I know some stuff can happen quickly and some stuff will take a little longer. But you don't want to wait forever because you never know when the goodwill is gonna end up or ride the momentum or whatever, right?
Well, and you can
So,
also then add Lenny McDonald and Neil and all this down the
Well,
way as well.
Davy Shields Junior and all the rest, there's
Yeah.
lots of them that made,
that would be a whole nother group discussion for somebody
No,
somewhere.
but there's enough space
Yeah.
for things
Yeah.
down the way.
Cause you're gonna get into a lot of discussion about where do you draw the line or what's the criteria and all that kind of stuff. I know that's been talked around for years on. Is famous people that have gone on to other communities and made fame that it's outside of Hanna, or then some people say, well, what about, I'll just pick, Charlie Fielding, he was great for the community.
oh, my
Right, or-
Uncle Charlie was not.
No, but you know what I mean? Like there's, the more people you talk to, the more people say that, well, this person meant something to the community, or this person meant something to the community. Why is it just famous
Well,
people?
it's
So you have
funny
to
when you
really.
Maybe it has to be
Shields.
sponsored or something.
That doesn't do anything for me. I realize he's significant, but it doesn't do anything for me.
You have to, the definition of, there's gonna be a line drawn somewhere at some point. That'll be the challenging part, right? Anyway, that's not part of this discussion, sorry. So anyway,
Davy Shields was the first couple to make $1 million. $1 million.
and then, the stretch goal, which is gonna be up to somebody else, is the museum and or hotel and all that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna get down that rabbit hole. But I would think a private business or something might want to step up and look at doing some stuff there, or maybe the band is really interested in doing something. That's not the word I got from the lawyer, but anyway. And then, of course, marketing, there'd be press releases and official launches, and we'd have a postcard type thing to give out, and website. We'll have a website page with all the tour details and all that kind of stuff, social media blitz and maps and all kinds of fun stuff. So I guess really today it was letting you know kind of what we've come up with, and then getting council's kind of direction on what. So we've got direction on signage.
We'll get direction on signage, official direction on signage at the November meeting.
Okay. I guess any comments on the tour? You want us to keep pursuing it and video locations,
Yes.
and then the merit walk to kind of come after, but start to really formulate a plan around it. Is that kind of the direction? I know you guys can't give official directions, but
I like that direction.
And I guess the other question I have, Mark, so are you okay, again, this plan, are we okay with it being public knowledge?
I think it is
Probably
now.
is sort of public knowledge, just like DeRay's earlier today, but I know the band hasn't commented back one way or the other, but I just, because what we could do at the November meeting is also accept this plan for information. Not that we're gonna approve the plan, but we can accept it for information.
I think what we should do is the next step, now that I have a little guidance that council is willing to entertain most of the options, as many options as possible, scaling back maybe a couple things or future phasing a couple things, is I'll tweak up this plan a little bit based on your feedback, and then send it to the band and see what they're on board with before we really
So,
send it out
at this
there.
point, until we get something back from the band, we don't want to have.
I don't want to set them up, so, I mean, I'm sure they're on board with lots of it, but for example, if we put out there that we're gonna put QR codes on the murals and there's gonna be a video in the band, if they say, well, no, we don't want to get into
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it's already out there and people are like, oh, it's, Nickelback
Yeah.
doesn't want to do blah, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
set them up to look bad because they poo-poo something.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So that's why this is still just a very pie in the sky concept
Okay,
until the band says what
Okay.
they are willing to do.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fair. And like I said, even when I look at timing, and I understand where Mark's coming from, it would be nice to do everything at once and have the band here and have that all happen. I just trying to put some realistic timetable on, even if they come back to us and say, yes, we're good, then we have to establish costs of
Oh,
developing.
yeah, I mean, this is all
This-
cost dependent too, right?
and
Like, I have no idea. what
Mark
this
and
is
I
gonna cost.
talked yesterday, we're optimistic there might be some funding out there through Northern Alberta, some Northern Economic Development Fund. They've got a new
There's always grants for stuff.
intake that might be able to help us with some of
Just can't
the
always get them.
costs. But we do, the
Yeah.
QR code tour will work effectively if the band's on board and they're willing to provide video clips for each of the QR code
Or
stations.
sound bites.
Or sound bites or something. And so it's almost a catch-22 until the band confirms that they want to do that. Do we then, we don't really have the tour, or do we want to promote a big tour if we don't have that? We could always make up our own QR codes with information on it, but it would be so much more effective if it was Chad telling a story about what they did when they made this album. And it would certainly bring people in to hear that, see that, and go on the tour. So I think the first step we'll deal with at council on the 14th is the signage.
Take care of your entrance signage. If you're gonna go ahead with that, you can do that on your guys'
but
timeline.
in the-
And
in
the
the-
rest is all tour specific.
The rest, I guess, we'll wait to hear back something from the band, and then once we hopefully get positive, they want to be involved in the QR code production, we can get some costing on what it would cost to do that signage, move forward and bring that as the next stage, and get approved from council on costs, so,
Because I'd be willing to burn my card. You told me if I ever needed anything to call
yeah.
him. I'd be willing to burn my
We might be
card.
burning a few cards on this.
This is fine.
So, yeah, I think there's some.
Well, it was so genuine. That was the interesting part of that whole conversation was they were going to put a sign up at Gary's if we didn't do something.
Oh, no, the discussions that I've had with the lawyer, they're
Yeah. So,
definitely interested.
yeah.
It's just, what is it?
Well,
gonna
like I
look
said, the conversation with Chad and Ryan was so genuine that it just, was almost weird. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, we've got some good ideas there. I think from my perspective, number one, we want to nail down the signage and get that over and done with and complete and move forward. So next year when council's at AM and the speaker wants to talk about, they can talk about the signs are done and up and moving forward. So,
Sure never thought we'd get that much play.
no,
But just remember all the signage discussion, it's the first stage.
yeah.
So that people, you whet their appetites to say there's more coming.
Yeah.
So they don't just think we threw signs back up to placate people and that's all we're doing. Because I've always had comments from people outside of town, like, why don't you guys do more with Nickelback? Like, they're world famous, like, you guys are wasting opportunity. I'm like, some people don't see it that way, but what?
Well, and the thing with
Well,
Nickelback
they have
is
to be on site.
for all the fundraisers and everything, because I've done a bunch of the community initiatives group, but there's always an album, the signed album, a guitar, a jersey.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
there's
there's always something.
And that's the thing that, when people ask, what's your relationship with Nickelback? And I go, well, I personally have very little to do with them, but I mean, they're still very involved in the community. Because if there's a worthy project to do in town, they're supportive of it, so. Yeah.
Okay, I think I've got enough feedback to tweak this up a bit and then I'll send it back to CEO Neil and
Motion
Into
to
the band.
we thank Mark for the update on Nickelback promotional plans. Counselor Kroll,
Yeah, no, great job. I think that's.
all in favor?
thanks.
Carried.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna make this fast.
Sorry, do you want me to shut any of this down or you guys?
No,
We'll do that.
We'll deal with it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
So just going through my report, you would have had a chance to read it, so good and bad. So the lights are installed, they're just not working because we don't have the electrical component, the constant current regulator. So the last date we've had was, they were supposed to be shipped by November 27th. You know how shipping goes. We've got our fingers crossed, and we'll go from there. But we've got that one last step to do. The Flying Club was on board. Like my discussions with MPE was we could try test 3 lights. If they fail, we know it doesn't work, but we've wrecked 3 lights. And there was no guarantee from anyone that even if the 3 lights worked, if we powered up all 60, that it wouldn't have any issues with the 60. And if it did, we're on that dime, and no one would guarantee that it would work. So I said, let's just leave it and hope for the best on the delivery date. So working with Prairie Scan on our application, just they've got wanting some additional information or questions, clarifications. So working through that with them. Apex will be back in town next week, or not Apex, Nuterra, who is the contractor for Apex, will be back in town, targeting first week of November. And they only have to do work in 5 areas. But some of them may have to be closed for a day or two to do the work. So working on that. I did put something in here about the budget, but as I was working on last night, I am going to bring something to council at the November meeting to look at securing some dates, because I think I've got a majority of it done. It's just trying to find dates that would work to present to council. Typically, we've went the Wednesday before the last council information session in March, then the council information in March, and if we needed another one, we would have one the first week in December. I am away on vacation from the 16th to the 26th. We do have a council info on the 29th, but I have booked MPE in for the majority of that morning to go through the infrastructure management plan, which I think is important information for council to have. So I'm going to propose some dates. They might be, and we can talk about it, but I think there is some options that we could still target to have it approved at our December 12th council meeting. So if we can't, a lot of communities, what they'll do is they'll approve their previous year operating budget as their interim budget. So that gives authority to pay bills, pay staff, until the revised or the new budget is approved. So I'm working through that, and I will have some dates. Auditors were here Monday, Tuesday, and one of the auditors, we removed them this morning, and they moved into the meeting room beside to finish off their interim audit.
What was going on?
Yeah, so they were started work through it. They will be back again. Haven't got a date, but they'll be back again probably March to do the final audit for 2023. And just comment on the land use bylaws. So we did a lot of work at the last meeting, made a lot of amendments. We will be bringing forward the couple of amendments that Councilor Olson had requested be brought forward for consideration for prior to third reading. My comment was, if anybody else knows of anything as we move through this process, if they can let us know, then we can be better prepared.
Instead of
And
getting
no
blindsided.
slight to Councilor Olson, it just timing, he thought he had sent this stuff away and he hadn't. It was sitting in his to send file on his email. But if there's anything that else comes up, just reach out. If you have any questions or concerns, just say, well, what about, can we change this? We still have time. And again, I always say to people, it is a bylaw, but it's not written in concrete.
It's a living document.
It's a living document. So if we move forward into 2024, after it's been got third reading and there's something that needs to be tweaked or changed, it can be tweaked or changed. So just wanted to mention that. Other than that, I think everything's going fairly well. Curling rink ice is being made. They are anticipating starting November 1st. So a little bit earlier than normal. But it's gone well is my understanding, and arena's been operating, everything's been going along fairly smoothly. So
Any applications for Public Works?
we had applications. I don't know if we had any really good ones that were like, oh, we need to jump on this. I haven't talked to Brent for a day or two, but I think there were a couple that they were going to look at potentially interviewing. But again, we talked about people looking for work. We had people apply, just none of them, not very many of them had what we were looking for in terms of experience operating equipment or class 3 license or any of those things. So they could all be learned, but it's nice if you've got somebody who comes in who has that experience operating that equipment. So I know that was quick, but if there's any questions council has about that or anything else, please feel free to fire away.
Hearing none.
Okay.
Do we need a motion for your presentation?
No.
Okay. Adjournment at.
Well, no,
Sorry, round table, yes.
just in case.
Yeah. Council Cole? Council Bowden?
I helped with the chamber move yesterday,
Oh, did you?
Monday. And
So good. Thanks for bringing that up. So,
attended they had a session, a small business session, that they had invited lots of people. They had some very good speakers that were available. It's unfortunate that the attendance for small businesses was poor to none. And, it's unfortunate when they have the opportunity and they don't take advantage of it, but it's difficult when you're running your own business too. So, but it was a good discussion and with those that were there. And
I thought it was a great idea.
yeah,
Attendance was not what we wanted attendance to be. And maybe in hindsight, I know they were doing it during Small Business Week. And I think next year their plan is to go back to the awards system. So they might take care of something during Small Business Week then. But in the future, maybe try the same thing, but maybe have it in an evening thing. So maybe 5 to 8 or something.
Yeah.
Then some of the business owners might be easier for them to get to. But thank you for bringing up the chamber move. So we talked informally about them moving in there. And so they took us up on the offer and have moved in there. They are still operating under, the existing lease agreement, which basically says if someone comes in and wants to offer more for that space, they either have to match it or we will terminate the lease. So I know that's a concern of theirs. I know they were going to talk, my understanding is they may talk at their November 9th full chamber meeting about asking the town to maybe solidify their arrangement in there till the end of 24 with the hopes, because they're going to be looking at primarily using the front third of the building, front half of the building, the way it's set up. Then there are 2 offices there that if they had someone who wanted to sublease, needed an office space or something, that they maybe could co-op those other 2 offices, and between the 3 of them have a more acceptable rent proposal for council, but they might need some time to try and facilitate that. So
We're not gonna continue to advertise that it's.
well, we haven't advertised it right now, Councillor Murphy, but
Because I think supporting the chamber is instrumental to a town thriving.
Mhm.
And when they're really moving
Yeah.
from place to place to these really not conducive environments, this is a
Yeah.
perfect spot.
I-
So renting out those spaces to members of the chamber who requires, I think is a great
Well, that'll
idea.
be
Or Small business.
That's
Yeah.
that's a longer
Right.
discussion for council to have around the philosophy of that space. So I don't disagree. Council wishes to support the chamber.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna get $300 a month from the chamber and Joe's business comes here and says, I'll give you $1,000 a month for that space, that's $8,400 loss of income at the town. So I know we want to support, but to what parameter, where does the line get drawn in terms of support? And hopefully they can find some additional use for those offices that will help, but
From my understanding, that's kind of the plan, and when they had moved to the hub, their understanding was that it would be, it would be open for small business, to be able to rent space and everything, so they're in a situation where the information they were given wasn't a long-term plan and all that, so I would like to give them a little bit of lenience and getting an opportunity to get. There was somebody that was utilizing some of this, the open space as well on a part-time basis that might be interested in using this on a part-time basis and perhaps some other office.
yeah,
space
so
too
there's
that
some,
maybe we can promote through our newsletter and such that space might be available there or with the chamber that can give them an opportunity to plant roots. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to
yeah, they've
help them move
moved,
a couch and cabinets and all this other stuff yet
Yeah.
on Monday in the snow. So, I think that's,
yeah, I've
everybody
been
else
here
was showing up. so
10 years, just over 10 years, and they've
They've
been at 4
bounced, yeah.
locations.
They were
Yeah.
here once in the.
They were in this
and-
office
Then they were
once,
in the building that burned down.
yeah, and then over there and then
the
back
hub.
to here,
Yeah.
so this will be their 4th place.
Yeah,
I
They were
think
in Car Star at one time as well.
yeah, before.
that must have been before my
before.
10, that must have
Oh,
been
the
before,
little yeah.
that must have been
that-
before
yeah.
they were down in the old
Yeah,
vet
because I
clinic.
think Pat Burns had his accounting
That's right.
business out of there years
Yeah.
ago.
All that and her husband at one point.
So, no,
Anyways.
thank you for reminding us, so make sure council's aware they're in there, so.
Councilor Murphy?
The only hard part is I have to put down my Fenton tomorrow, my little chihuahua. He's
Oh.
been very sick and they can't find anything, so
Well, sorry to hear that.
Yes.
that's my sad. Besides that, I'm okay.
No. Traveling the great weather, and I gotta get back to it.
Nothing for me, just plug away. I sent.
Yeah, you sent me that email.
So the Red Deer River Municipal Group are looking for support along with the government on the second dam on the Red Deer River. So basically just there'll be a motion from us to support them on their initiative is to go ahead. I officially said we have to put through council, but I'm pretty confident that we would support it. I mean, it's years away, it's beyond our time frame, but yeah. So they just were looking for official support, so.
No effects of was it Cochrane that had the sewer?
No,
stuff?
different water system.
Different system.
Different system.
Yeah, they're on the boat.
Oh,
Yeah. Set it up at Steve over there, we already got a nice park.
Well, it's interesting you'd say that because everybody has an opinion of where it should go and finally it come down to basically, it got fairly heated at our meeting and I finally just said, engineering will tell us the most optimal place to put it. And I said, I really don't think our opinion is of much importance in this situation. The one counselor from the county of Stepler, well, if you don't put the county of Stepler, you're stupid. I'm like, well, why would you flood perfectly good farmland out
Yeah.
to put a reservoir in? And well, we could haul potatoes south, and, yeah, okay, so, but yeah, it was pretty interesting conversation, so we're just looking for a resolution, or a motion to support them.
Any protesty concerns about environmental impacts at all? We had that with the Old Man River. Remember when the Old Man River
What was
Dam
that, Sandra?
any protest potentials to have another?
Oh, for
dam?
sure, I mean, there's protests for everything nowadays.
I just remember the Old
Yeah.
Man River. was-
So we'll take a vote, adjournment, whatever time it is.
Looks like it's 12:04
Well, 4, 6, whatever it
by
is.
that clock.
I was looking at the one behind you, and the one over there is different.
Yeah.
You know how I get rid of that bleep bleep?
And
A bleep bleep?
Well, that noise that it keeps making.
Okay, let's take a look. You've got noise coming, right?
Well, yeah, it'll probably come up here shortly. Didn't you hear it during the whole
Oh, yes.
council?
I did not, so I have to go to your.
I think he
settings.
must have notifications of
Yeah.
on something, whether
Well,
those
you've
are
got
emails
reminder
or
First of all,
whether.
you have sound,
Yes.
so.
But
over this-
I've tried to take that down as low as it'll go,
And it's still bleeping.
and it still
Burns
does.
wasn't.
No.
Okay,
Minor.
But it does it all night long.
oh, no,
Yeah,
no.
but you
Yeah,
get.
council
right
meeting.
there.
Okay, that's telling you you've got a message. Okay,
Well, then I probably got 1,000 of them that I haven't looked at.
so let's go to the
Okay,
dots.
I'll see you in 5
It might
minutes.
just keep reminding you that it's there. if you just
Settings, there we go.
respond.
And then we go to sound. And we've got it set on sound, so you just have to put it on mute.
Okay,
Now, you don't use this as a phone,
no.
so you should never have any sound on whatsoever.
Sounds great.
Everything's mute
Okay.
now.
That's
so-
good.
And that that's just
He's
letting you know
everywhere.
there's
We
some
don't
kind of
got
a
it.
message,
I know.
the notification bar. You can put it on do not disturb, but as you saw by Danny's, it doesn't always work depending on the.
Yeah, it was bizarre, because I looked at my, the orange is there, and,
But if you have it flagged that your wife can call anytime,
yeah, well, I
something
didn't
like
have
that.
that, no, I'm not that fancy, Jesus, Sandra.
She's important though. We are still on camera.
Yeah,
Okay, so now it's set on mute. So if we close it, let's close it
Nope.
and open it
Yeah,
again.
you're good. Yeah, definitely, you're good.
No
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, I knew Mark said he was
So we
going
gotta
there, but he
close
didn't say
this
what
one.
for, so.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't tell him, but
You've got everything on the
Oh,
planet.
okay.
So I might, I'm sure he'll be
That's
thrilled.
good. I didn't-
Have you ever had a
Cause
tablet
I,
before?
yeah, because he said,
Well, I've had this for
said,
about 2
trying to
years
arrange
now.
for him to be here.
But now you're using it. Good for
I
you.
don't have to be there till 4.
I know.
I am using it. Yeah.
It's because.
No, that's good, you're good.
I just thought it would-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
definitely
But
good.
this worked, right?
Yeah.
You were able to read?
Yeah.
Now, sounds off
Hey, are you-
completely, so you're okay. And I'll just
Really?
turn it off.
Thank
You
you.
should get.
Yeah, you
these.
too.
You can do my computer. All I need is, I need the icon to put back on
okay,
And that's the icon for,
for my council.
for the
my
Adobe
Outlook
Acrobat.
Browser. I guess
It's
it is.
Outlook, or is it your Adobe?
okay,
Your
well, if there's
Acrobat
no
was
parcel there,
missing.
I can't do anything about it.
I'm
What's the
pretty
tracking
sure your
number on it?
Acrobat was missing. You know, our next meeting,
I can get into it and everything, but I can't,
you can't open the
but I
document.
gotta go through,
Oh, that's right, because it's your Outlook, but you have, okay, so it's
Yeah.
your, Lori should do it.
okay.
Lori, because it's reinstalling your programs for the
33?
town.
Yeah.
She should.
43,
Yeah, because like all I do is hit the icon and it pops up, right?
Yeah.
5'8",
But
But the icon's
now I
gone.
gotta go through all the rigmarole.
Sorry, 5'8".
and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
Yeah, I suggest